Yippee-ki-yay, Mother Friday. It is George Brauchler on the George Show, 710 KNUS. You've done it, folks. You've made it through the second full week of January. Hard to imagine, but we are on the doorstep of another glorious weekend. And if you're a government employee, you're looking at a 3-day weekend because of MLK on the backside of this. That also means that if you're in the military, you're not going into work today either, because the military awesome at providing 4-day training holidays, including this one right here. Weather, I can't believe I'm saying this. This is the warmest it's going to be until next Wednesday, according to the weather voodoo practitioners. 35 degrees is going to be the high, a low of 5 with a minus sign in front of it. But tomorrow and Sunday and Monday, they continue to jigger and fuss over and manipulate and squeeze and torture and origami whatever data they're allowed to look at. And they change the numbers all the time. So tomorrow, that's Saturday. Yeah, a weekend day where you might be like, do I go outside and take a breath? The answer would be no, because there's a very light snow with a high of 7 degrees, a low of -7. Both of those numbers, I believe, are very close to freezing. I'm not sure where that is on the scale. Sunday, 8 degrees with a low of -10. And then Monday, 4 degrees. 4. Interestingly, with a low of only -3. That's weird. So for the next 3 days after today, we're in single digits. We hit 28, which is huge when you consider we were at 4 degrees the day before on Tuesday. Now, all of this changes, as you know. We'll keep informing you on Monday about what happened. But as it looks right now, if you were going to do anything outside, today is your last best day to do it until sometime next week, and then maybe thereafter. Lots of stuff going on in the news. And I would say that because of the fact that we had a whole bunch of things take place, both within the state, within the country, and globally, which were huge. Can't talk about every single one of them today, but we're going to get onto some. We have some great guests coming up. But, you know, we had the State of the State address by Governor Polis. That is very, very interesting. We'll go over that. I've got the full text of that. We've got a little bit of sound of that. Some very interesting things there. Some very hypocritical, painful things there. And then, of course, at the national level, all the talk of the DeSantis campaign coming out of the most recent polling. I don't know if you've seen this, but in the most recent polling, and it's just polling, DeSantis is third in Iowa behind Haley. That, folks, is the end of his campaign if that turns out to be true. There is no New Hampshire rebound. There's not going to be a South Carolina bounce for him. In fact, even though I read somewhere that there are only a really small percentage of all of the outstanding Republican votes for the primary get cast by South Carolina, there's no victory. I mean, even, Nevada is in there. There's no victory for Ron DeSantis. The problem that creates is he heads into March 5th, Super Tuesday, where like nearly every other vote worth getting is out there. It's something like 2/3 or something get voted. It's over, folks. So my guess is that by this time next week, we're talking about Ron DeSantis's campaign in the past tense. And that'll make it super interesting moving forward, because that will leave only Nikki Haley and the yip dog, Vivek Ramaswamy, on the outside doing that until he gets somehow encouraged to leave the race. I don't know what that looks like. Maybe he'll just want to stay on long enough to say, hey, I outlasted DeSantis. I don't know the answer to that. But so much going on. Billy, when the weather turns like this, is there a temperature below which you're not allowed to do trivia?
No, because the beer is still cold and delicious. The only thing is the nice part is if you're standing outside, your beer doesn't warm up. That is the one positive. So, yeah, but no. Yeah, got to do that one.
Did you have it last night?
No, did not last night. I did earlier in the week. Yeah, it was good. And in fact, our buddy Lou, who's not here today, it's a wonderful Mark Crowley, but Lou helped me figure out a way to expand my music library. And I won't go any further because there may be some legal implications. So
was this armpit music?
No, it's stuff that I need. One of the things that I've had a problem with is getting specific songs and being able to tailor things to some of the questions. And this
Thank
past
you for not making it physical.
yeah, this past week, I actually had a question about what video game was finally conquered 40 years after its release. They should have seen this on the news. That video game was
Pong.
Nope, Tetris. Yeah, little
What do you mean?
teenager.
How do you conquer Tetris?
There is
unending.
a final. No, there isn't. There's a final screen. He reached it. It took 40 years for someone to hit the final screen. Yeah, he beat it.
Nobody bumped the power cord.
Yeah, no,
not at all. Turned off the TV.
Yeah, not at all. And he's like, I think he's 13.
40 years.
Yeah, he's 13 years old, and it's been going 40 years, and finally someone did. So that was one of the answers to the trivia question. I was able to get the Tetris, the theme song for Tetris, and play that. That's what I needed.
Yeah, but
yeah.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah.
So just to be clear, a 13-year-old defeated it after 40 years of people trying, or a 13-year-old started and now at 53.
no, it's the game was released 40 years ago. Nobody's beaten it, and this 13-year-old is the first person on the planet ever to do it. First person. So
Jeff's gonna be intrigued, disappointed that he didn't know to do that.
So that was kind of nice, and I was able to. The thing that's really gotten me excited about the trivia is I get a set fee. And so I don't go out and I don't buy extra songs and things because that cuts into the profits. So I don't spend money on that because that pays for the groceries and everything in the house. So it's a nice arrangement. So
now you have the ability to get music.
Yes.
At a much discounted rate.
Yes.
And by discounted to zero.
To zero. Yes. It is fantastic.
A lot of this podcast, this portion of it, will be viewed as an exhibit at trial. So
I don't see. The thing is that this is a legal way of doing it. It's just I'm not certain that when they did it legally, they had the idea that someone like me was going to download roughly 500 songs in the last 72 hours. So that's what I've been doing.
Holy smokes.
Yeah.
Leave it to Lou, though. He's crafty, right? Like he just kind of minds his own business, comes along, makes people laugh, goes back to his place, sits down in that chair, which is, I believe, the only chair we have in the building that can get you to a full 180 degrees. But he's figured out a way to do it. I don't know how he does it, but
I don't either.
He's done dangerous. It. I think he probably through the same skills he used to figure out how to get free music.
Exactly.
And then he just goes along solving problems in people's lives.
Oh, it's wonderful. It is. He solved this problem. And he also allowed me, there's a song I've been wanting to use as the first song of the night for trivia because it has a great setup and it has some breaks in it and there are things that I can do with it. But again, I was just being cheap.
Jeopardy?
No. And the thing is, it's a great song because most people know it, but it's not top of mind. So when you hear it, you're like, oh, I know this song. But it's basically on a low B rotation on most classic rock stations where it pops up very infrequently, maybe once every 26, 27 hours. So it's not on a high rotation. So it's something that people know, but is really good. And that song is Jane by Jefferson Starship.
I love that song.
Yeah.
Jane,
yes.
Jane,
yes. It's a great, and see, that's the thing is it's a great song, but it's not the Jefferson Starship that gets played all the time. It's lower. And
but you can get that off of Apple Music.
I know, but I don't have an Apple thing, and I have to download and convert it to MP3s and other stuff. So I found a way to do it otherwise. So yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So it's kind of nice.
Very interesting. Yeah. I do love that song, man.
Oh, it's great.
That's kind of their transition from the airplane to the Starship. Is it right about that time?
Yeah, it is. It's right about that time.
Yeah.
And the thing is, it starts with this really nice little electronic, almost keyboard intro that's got kind of a nice setup. Kind of that little, like something's happening, that's just, it's a little light and airy and it's different. And then it hits with a nice guitar right in the beginning. And that guitar runs for about 20 seconds. And that's a wonderful opportunity to say, hey, we're going to be playing trivia here in like 60 seconds. Your last chance to... And then it goes into the lyrics and you got about a minute 30. And then you've got that weird disco breakdown. That's about 7 seconds. They do another verse. That's right. Yep. And then you hit the guitar solo. And the guitar solo runs 45 seconds.
Really awesome.
Yeah, and it runs 45.
That's the best part that kicks in. Yeah.
So I can drop in over that solo, and I can read all the rules and kick off the game and get the first question started. And I still have 90 seconds after that to run that music into the first question. So it's great. It's perfect.
Any chance that because we've spent time talking about it, and now my palate is wetted, that we somehow build that into bumper or post bumper?
I'll see if I can find it. And see if we can do it. Yeah, I've got to remember that I can't play it over the YouTubes.
I don't know who that singer is, but that dude has one of those distinctive voices that as soon as you hear the first word, you're like, oh, Jefferson Starship, Jefferson.
Exactly.
I mean, who's that guy? But he's got that voice, kind of like Steve Perry.
Yep, exactly.
From from Journey.
Yep.
One of those things, man, where there's Journey that doesn't have Steve Perry as the lead vocals, and then you have the real Journey, which is when he shows up, and all you just know as soon as you hear his voice. There's just voices like that.
Yeah. I had I don't know if you bring up Steve Perry. I had a Steve Perry question this week, and I played Separate Ways, but also Oh Sherry. And you start off and you do Oh Sherry, and then transition to Separate Ways. So people will catch that. Yeah. So did that one.
I have vivid memories of I can't remember what they called it, but it was like Battle of the Bands on Friday nights on MTV.
Yeah.
Where they'd launch the videos, and you'd have the thing. Yeah. And I still remember Separate Ways with Journey, which by comparison to modern videos is ridiculous, right? Because it's them like shuffling next to a warehouse, walking down,
just random shots.
Sing, there's no story to it. It's just dudes playing music and singing and all that stuff. But I still remember that in my brain. Like that was yesterday in some ways. But the
visuals are so iconic. Kids, and it's weird with those videos because you go into the 80s new wave and it gets really esoteric, where it's like there's a shot of the band, there's someone holding an orange. There's a shot of a window, the band, and you're like, what is going on here?
Yeah. And then there's the modern ones, and I don't watch a lot of music videos. I don't even know if they make them anymore.
Yeah, they do.
But there was a period of time where there could be an entire video that had no singing or instruments at all. It was just the story of whatever was going on. I mean, it's just weird how it's all morphed. And and then the next time I see the MTV logo, it's when I'm watching Yellowstone. You know what I mean? Like they're out there producing all these things. I don't know.
In the world of videos, one of the reasons that Pat Benatar experienced a surge when MTV got on the air is she had been making videos for her songs before MTV launched. And MTV needed videos desperately, and they needed an American because most of the videos were being made in Europe. So they needed some American performers. So that's why Pat Benatar got a really nice boost from them early on. Joan Jett also received some love.
Although they look very similar.
Yes, they do. Sound. Now, ZZ Top.
But also, love is a battlefield.
It is.
She would have survived and thrived just based off of little revelations like that.
Yeah, she would have. And the ZZ Top is very important in the history of MTV and music videos. ZZ Top is
some of the most attractive women I've ever seen in my youth. You talked
about the story element. They're the first band to do a 2-part video where it's 2 different songs, but it is a connective story based on the Eliminator car, which again, super smart because that car, they were restoring it. And at the time, back in the day, you're talking 80s, they had dropped somewhere around $250,000 into the car, restoring the Eliminator car. Once they put it into the video, that became a business tax deduction, and they got to write it off.
Oh, brilliant.
Yeah.
Hold on.
So, ZZ Top not only did the first 2-part video, but found a way to write off the cost of the Eliminator car.
Isn't that the answer to the music thing? Other than lose freeway and legal way, of course, to do it. But isn't that it? You write off your business. That's a business expense, Billy.
I know, but it's still taking money out of the pocket right now. And I would rather have the money now than writing it off in the taxes later.
Have you created a business entity to house all of your outside of Salem radio business stuff?
No.
Why not?
Just independent contractor stuff. Yeah.
Yeah. You could still do the 1099 thing, but as an entity, as an LLC, for instance, like this guy.
I've thought about it, but there are some requirements and some other things that I'm like, I'm just not going to jump through the hoops because it's not. I don't get that much of an advantage out of it from what I've seen. So
that's true. I think it really serves as a pass through if you're like a single entity kind of LLC, but it's a place to be able to house all of those business expenses.
Yeah.
Like my many gels and lotions.
Yes. And all those scented candles.
Yes. I've got myself to the place where I'm thinking if I start a YouTube channel, it doesn't matter if it's successful.
Yeah.
And I just film myself doing things I would be doing otherwise. Can I then write off every one of those things as a business expense?
Possibly.
Because is there an end to how you can milk this system?
Yeah,
I've seen people turn their love of luggage into huge YouTube channels where they just, and I'm like, okay, what passion could I turn into a YouTube channel that, people could see outside the NC-17 rating? And I don't know, man. I can't tell you, I don't have a hobby. Like I don't have a time in my life for hobbies.
See, I have an idea for a YouTube channel. And of course, it is reptile focused. But yeah, I know. Surprise. Yeah, that's definitely surprising. But the issue being that there are some logistical problems with it. And I'm just again looking at, I did
Snakes
run
are camera shy.
What I did is I ran a basic P&L, profit and loss. So the idea of how much money am I going to have to put into it in order to see, what's the return going to look like. And the investment on the front end is higher than what I want to do. It's very labor and monetary intensive up front, and it will take a long ramp until those expenses drop down. And I don't like the graph. And so I'm not willing to burn that kind of money. If anybody found a bag of money or a backpack full of stuff and wants to do this, I'm happy to have you underwrite it. But I'm not going to invest that kind of money.
I'll say this. I think you could start cheap. You start with your phone. You just start making it. It's because it's your passion and insight that sells it, not the quality of the camera.
Here's the issue. It's not the camera and stuff. The idea that I have would have to involve some travel. And that's the hurdle, is because it's not a matter of the idea. I can't figure out how to execute this idea being at home. And that's the advantage most people have.
Please tell me it's you and the snakes on vacation. You know what I mean?
It is somewhat like that. It's not me taking the snakes on vacation, but I know, but it's like going and it's a nice little process. And I think it would work for the community that I have in mind. I think it is well targeted, but the monetary investment on the front end in order to get it rolling is just more than I'm comfortable with at this time, unless I want to start sleeping in the garage, because my wife will be very mad that I've spent all the money and we can't feed each other. So that's
here's one from our friends. I still think Billy should have a YouTube channel to provide live commentary on soccer games for us ignorant Americans.
I thought about that. I actually goofed around with that a little bit this weekend, and I looked at the schedule to think about, could we do this? And I watched a couple of other watch-alongs over the weekend. That's another one. It's much easier to execute. There are some things that make my weekend schedule complicated at this time, but that is another idea that is very, very, it's self-contained. It's easy to execute at home. What I need is and in all honesty, I've taken this suggestion literally, and I think you appreciate you, Texter. I really appreciate this. I'm looking for some graphics packages and things that I can bring onto the screen, because I will need to be able to place lineups, and I need to be able to talk about tactics. So that's what I'm looking at right now, is what is that kind of an investment, and what does that look like based on computing power, and what do I need? So I'm looking at that one. Because that's what I need. There has to be something else going on where we run through lineups, we run through ball possession. I have to have, live statistics, things like that. And so that's going to take me a couple months to figure out. But maybe I like that idea.
Honestly, a lot. The webs, I've already got the name for you. You can have it for free. Just give me some attribution. It's called Balls and Snakes. Just right
I
there.
like that. That's a good one. That's a good
nailed
one.
It.
I was actually, there are times I was looking at the name on the snake channel, looking at things like Snake Daddy. I'm like, no, that seems a little too porny. That seems like I'm going to go into some sort of Pornhub or some sort of action.
Yeah, you Google that.
Yes.
You could be genuinely looking for your stuff, and you end up finding something different.
Exactly. Yeah. And so that's not good. Yeah. So
they're not biters, but they will spit.
Yes, they will. You have to hold them just right.
This thing's going to happen. I've got a certain, feeling about this. At some point when you go huge and you blow up because there's been some investment in this thing,
only
just remember us little people.
Yeah. It's the only one's going to blow up is with their gas leak. That's the only way that's going to happen. But I like the idea. And I've watched some Americans reacting to soccer videos too, because I'm trying to take the temperature of what that market looks like and what videos are hitting there. And so again, what is that audience looking for? And I'm doing some stuff with watch-alongs, and I really do appreciate the suggestion, because my vast majority of watch-alongs, God, they suck. They're awful. They're really bad.
But that's true of almost all sports.
That's
right. Like, somehow the people, they're like, oh, you're a former player and you were good on the field. Let's put you on camera.
Yeah.
And the insight, we've talked about this before. Like, I'm a big fan of Tony Romo. What's his name?
Yeah.
The former tight end, Greg. What's his name from the Panthers? They give good insights.
Yep.
But most of these guys, I don't know, man. It's like, Dan Deerdorf was the worst. Growing up, Dan Deerdorf had the most inane, obvious comments. Like, he's going to want to get that helmet on before he gets in the huddle.
Exactly.
Like, what?
Thank
you, Dan.
If they get a first down here, they have a chance at scoring. Oh, really?
They'll get more downs.
Yeah, exactly.
You've really got to get the football into a player's hands.
Exactly. It's that's really funny you say that, because there is a very acerbic, I think you'd like him a lot, a very acerbic former soccer player named Craig Burley. He is fantastic on ESPN, and he took apart a player recently. You wouldn't know his name, Mekhi Modric. It doesn't matter. He's a winger that is very fast but can't do much else. And during the analysis, Greg Burnley said, well, Modric is faster than probably 99% of the players in the league. However, this game is oddly focused around this small round thing on the ground that has to eventually get into the back of the net. That's something he can't do. And I'm just like, ouch. Like, ow. That was really nice. That was a great job. Yeah.
I think you could provide that kind of insight. Now, again, as far as I know, you're making things up. I mean, you could be completely making up everything because I know so little about soccer. You could be like, I don't know why these guys aren't just picking up the ball and running with it into the goal because they could, and I'd be like, wow, you can do that.
And that's the advantage with maybe doing this American soccer thing is because maybe the audience isn't as intelligent as I'm kidding. The people that will find it will definitely want.
You don't mean intelligent, you mean informed.
Yeah,
that's
exactly.
That is
true. That is true. But it is I have this way of breaking down, and my son laughs at me because I talk through the games quite a lot, but that's because when I played, I talk. I know, super shocker about me. Yeah, that I talk a lot.
No, I just pick because I've done this with you in the booth. People don't know this. You've been like, hey, come back here. I want to show you this clip, and I'll walk back there, and then you'll talk through this. Now watch this dude right here, and this guy right there, and this guy's chewing gum, but he's going to start choking on it in the upper left-hand corner. Yeah. The other guy, like what?
Yep.
I don't see any of that. It's craziness.
Oh, and that's the thing is you have to learn to train your eye to not watch the ball. It's everything else happening around it. Everything within 10 to 15 yards of it tells you what's going to happen.
It explains why I was so poor in sports leading up to this moment because I thought the ball was relevant.
I know. And in soccer, sometimes it's totally irrelevant based on other things that are going on the field, which is great.
In terms of this weekend here, any big plans? Because I had wanted to get up there to the National Western Stock Show, take the boys. Trey goes back to CSU as your son goes back this weekend. I think Trey's leaving on Sunday, even though he has Monday off. I think he has Monday off, so I think he's leaving Sunday.
I think we're rolling Monday.
Yeah. Amanda goes back to DC on Sunday. So it's just down to us, me and the boys, in terms of being able to go out and do crazy stuff. And I thought we would go to the National Western Stock Show, but I see those single-digit numbers, and I'm like, wait a minute, is it heated?
Yeah, it's only portions.
Keep the cattle and stuff.
Only portions of it are heated, and it's going to be very cold. Yeah, we were thinking about that too, and I'm not certain with the temperatures. We may bow out of that one. I have a lot of radio this weekend.
Oh, do you really?
Yeah, I've got a lot of them. I've got a couple of extra shifts, and I'm going to publicly shame myself. Again, it's only the third time this morning. The boss over at the other job called me out because there are certain liners and things that I have been ignoring. And she was right. She absolutely slapped me on the wrist, and she should have, because it's easy to do. And I have it on the to-do list, but I keep leapfrogging other things over it. And that is my fault. I needed to put more of a priority on this, and I needed to make a priority. And she says, make this priority. This needs to be done ASAP. So I did roughly 350 liners yesterday, and I've still got another 300 to do. Yeah, not a good thing. Yeah, I had neglected some things, and it's not a horrible thing. I only had about 100 that were really impactful that needed to be done right now before I turned on the microphone for the shifts this weekend. The others are just fill-in stuff and things later on for other formats. So that's okay. Not as big of a hole as I thought. So lots of that. And I'm hoping, I'm crossing my fingers that I'm gonna be part of a murder this weekend.
Well, I'm sorry. Say again.
No, got your attention.
You know we're still on the air.
Yes, I know.
If you're going to confess, beforehand,
we from a family, we were given a how to host a murder party game. And I had one years ago and had done it with some friends, and it was very fun. This one's updated, much more fun, much more put together. The storyline is much better. So I'm trying to arrange getting some of the family and other people over at the house. But so far, it's been like herding cats. It's been impossible. And so I don't know what's going to happen. I was even thinking of possibly tonight, but it's going to be too cold. Now we're thinking maybe Sunday, but Sunday's going to be freezing, and we want to do it before Spencer goes back to school. That's kind of the goal. So,
that does sound pretty cool.
Yeah. So, I mean, I even have, we had characters, and I've got half the family. We've already picked out characters, and I've planned how this thing goes.
Hold on, costumes? Are you guys going to do costumes?
I'm going to ask them to do costumes, but at least get into character, at least play this thing in. So the whole idea is it's the 1960s, and we're in a museum, and someone has been murdered. And so I'm actually going to end up, oddly enough, I'll play the host, but I'm going to have to set everything up as far as
Is
all
it
the stuff
called
beforehand.
Murder in the Orient Exhibit?
No,
because
that would be a good one.
By the way, can you say Orient anymore? I mean,
I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, without sounding bad about that. I don't.
Speaking of the 60s, on this exact day in 1966, a show debuted. We're going to try to combine a couple of your strengths here, but on the receiving end, in the trivia category, 1966, this show debuted involving Cesar Romero, Burt Ward, and Adam West.
Oh, that's Batman.
Bam. Nailed it. Now let's keep going, because this is another strong suit of yours. 1969, Atlantic Records releases the debut album of this Gigante band, giant. And I didn't mean to make it sound like it was a Spanish band. I'm just saying it was. No, it wasn't. It was just a giant band, a huge band.
Menudo.
No, it wasn't Menudo. I feel like now that I said Gigante, now you're like, oh, it must be a culture. No, it's not like that.
No, so 69.
69.
Oh,
they released the debut album.
Yeah,
the album was named after the band. So
is it
whatever that word is, eponymous.
Is it Led Zeppelin's original album?
Boom.
Yeah,
dude, you nailed it. All right, the last one.
Okay.
On this day in 2009, the 2008 FIFA World Player of the Year was named in Zurich, which is, of course, the headquarters for FIFA. It was
all the bribes go. 2009. Okay, I'm going to guess just based on when it is. Cristiano Ronaldo.
Good Lord. You nailed that.
Hey, there we go. Just based on timeline.
If you're going to play trivia with Billy, make sure he's on your team so that you can get those free beers, because, you nailed it.
Oh, thank you.
Batman, Led Zeppelin, and Ronaldo.
Yeah, there we go.
That was pretty good. That was nice work.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Yeah, I actually read a liner the other day about music trivia. There's one of the affiliate stations has a thing where it's a really neat, I'd love to see how they explore this, but they have a channel that's attached to their stream, where if you go to your smart TV, it drops down and gives you information about the songs they're playing, like extra, bonus information. And I was like, that's great. And they had this thing written. And so I kind of rewrote the little liner to say, hey, now you can even beat me at music trivia, because I drop in a lot of music trivia during my shifts.
They do something-ish like that for Amazon Prime. Like when you're watching a movie, you can click on the screen. And all of a sudden you get all this. When this scene was filmed, Jack Nicholson was drunk.
Exactly.
Or something like that.
He's not wearing pants. That's why they shoot it way up.
You can't tell. But,
exactly.
Yeah, that's important to know. I think we found the human answer to AI. It's BT.
I'm definitely random and sometimes wrong. So yes, absolutely.
But when you chime in with some of this stuff, just the idea that you get into the internet, think you're looking for one thing, and then all of a sudden you spend 30 minutes to an hour discovering the sex life of the tsetse fly or something like that.
I did that.
What is going on?
That's how I got into the manta rays this past weekend. Giant manta rays, and looking at their biology, because of how unique it is and so intelligent, and how they have the ability to swim in ways that other marine mammals don't, and why their biology is so large. It doesn't make any sense. And also the idea of how they flap those wings and what it actually does, because they're shaped a certain way to create the eddy currents that then propel them forward inside of them. Now, unlike skates and other rays, though, the giant manta rays have to keep swimming. They can't stop. They'll die if they stop. So,
is that what they say about sharks too? Like they have to have constant fresh water, or some kind of water running.
Only some sharks. There are some sharks that will sleep and even be found on
the
bottom.
Ones that eat you.
Nurse sharks. Nurse sharks will do that. Carpet sharks. There are a few others that'll sleep on the bottom. But yeah, they don't all have to. But there are some of them.
They've elevated those out. Now they're physician assistant.
Yes, they are physician assistant.
Because the nurse thing didn't seem cool enough.
No.
Listen, I was gonna ask you too, because we end up jumping into all this political stuff, and every once in a while you get to chime in because there's a caller that tickles your fancy or whatever that part of your body is. Yeah, that's right. When you're looking at Iowa shaping up, and if you look at Drudge, it's got a big thing that says, hey, 96 hours or less than 96 hours till Black Friday or Black Tuesday for Ron DeSantis. Man, how does this thing turn out?
See, for me, Iowa is less important than New Hampshire. New Hampshire for me is the bellwether. And the reason why Iowa is a good temperature of what's happening there in the Midwest. But traditionally, Iowa isn't really the kingmaker. It's New Hampshire.
That's true.
Yeah.
Now that's true. I don't know that how many people know how many nominees, including Trump, have lost Iowa to go on and win the nomination. You're right.
Yeah, Trump lost to Ted Cruz. Yeah.
And Rubio was third.
Yeah. And there was a time when God, what was it? I think it was Mitt Romney. When Mitt Romney was running, I think Santorum won Iowa that year.
Yes, you're right.
Yeah. So there is a history of Iowa doing their own thing, but I think it's a good temperature as far as what that electorate is saying. But New Hampshire is the one that I'm really paying attention to. Oddly enough, on the Democrat side of things, Iowa seems to be more important. The Iowans seem to pick the Democrat nominee, but again, it's not important this year. I just think that's an interesting idea.
No, because they killed off Iowa and New Hampshire.
Exactly.
Because Biden needed South Carolina to become the nominee. Now South Carolina is the end all be all of
now
the
it is. Now it is. Here's the narrative, and I think that Nikki Haley has a huge hill to climb. I think Ron DeSantis's political career is probably over. I think that during the next presidential cycle, he will try to revive it. But I have a feeling right now that the vast majority of Republicans have turned away from him. Don't think it's his time. Don't think that he is the alternative to Trump they originally thought he is, and some other things. And I also think that his interpersonal difficulties have hurt him. He can't do basic retail transactional politics. It's really hard for him.
Honestly, Bill, you hit something there. There's something about that guy in his delivery on the presidential stage. I mean, he had a gigantic win in Florida. He's crushing it in Florida, but somehow on this stage, there's just a piece missing, and I don't know what it is.
I don't either. And I saw a conversation with a focus group out of Iowa. One of the potential Republican caucus members, the comment they made about DeSantis was, and I quote, "He has a very punchable face."
Oh my
God. That's not going to win you any votes. That idea when that Republican person has that impression of you, that's going to hurt. So
I think the other thing about that is, and we all have it. It's just
I do.
we don't all wear it all the time, especially on a presidential campaign. But he's got resting bitch face.
Yes,
I mean, if you look at that guy when he's being asked questions or the camera's panning around the stage, he looks a bit like a British bulldog, the way his mouth turns down and all this stuff. And I'm like, dude, just look more confident. I'm not looking for you to be giddy happy, like, not like that. Not like Doug Dean or whatever his name was after. But dude, you look so unhappy all the time. With the downturned mouth. I'm just like, buddy, show some energy, man.
Yeah, and show some confidence in that too, rather than just being so sour. The thing that this is what I want to see: Iowa, New Hampshire, and we've got a member of the RNC coming up later that's going to talk to us about the ground game and what's going on there. I want to see where Nikki Haley sits, and I think she's got Iowa and New Hampshire to make a dent in Trump. And if she doesn't, she's done as well. And this is the reason why, is the narrative across the electorate is that nobody can beat Trump. The only way Nikki Haley can change that narrative is by beating Trump. So what if she can?
So she, in your mind, she has to win.
Has to. If she does not, it's over. And the reason why is because nobody else in the vast majority of the electorate with the Republicans believe anybody can beat Trump. Once that happens, now you have a new narrative. But if she cannot beat him in Iowa and cannot beat him in New Hampshire, I don't think she can beat him in South Carolina. I don't think so.
Oh, she's not going to win, buddy. She's not going to win South Carolina,
I don't think so at all.
Which is crazy. Yeah, which is her home.
It is really crazy, and I thought and I think she was counting on that. But she needs either a surprise victory in Iowa or New Hampshire, or it's over, because otherwise the narrative continues that nobody on the Republican side of the aisle can beat Trump, and it's done. That's it.
I think that makes a lot of sense. I don't know if she has to win or she just has to continue to be that heel nipping second place that continues to close the gap. If she can just get, because I don't know how many states on March 5th are winner take all in terms of the electoral, or not the electoral vote, the primary vote. But if she can just continue to hang around and keep the campaign going along enough to be a viable and believable alternative, some of this is you're just waiting for things to develop, you know what I mean, in the country, and hopefully they do before June or whatever the final end of all this stuff is. But it's definitely an uphill battle. I don't think it is mathematically or even poll-wise impossible. But if you said, George, you have $1 to bet, I'd still bet it on Trump. There's just no way. I just don't think she's going to get it. I'm almost positive DeSantis is done a week from now.
Yeah.
No matter what, there's just no way to figure that out.
Here's something interesting. There was a bromide that I ran across in the last 24 hours that this analyst said has completely flipped. And I went, oh, good Lord, they're right. Do you remember the bromide of with one party, they fall in love with a candidate and the other party falls in line? When we were growing up, it was that the Democrats fall in love with a candidate and the Republicans fall in line. This analyst, and I think they're right, says that bromide is completely flipped. Said now the Republicans have fallen in love while the Democrats fall in line. And their example was the previous presidential election cycle. And they went back to Biden never being anybody's first choice, but because he showed in the polling that he was the one person that could coalesce enough of a group of people to vote to unseat Trump, they chose him. And this analyst said, oddly enough, in the same scenario, the one person in the Republican field that smashes Biden is Nikki Haley. And the Republicans are not doing that. They're not coalescing around the one person that is almost but guaranteed to be able to unseat Biden. They say with Trump, it can be a coin flip. But with Haley, you've got it, according to what they see in the numbers. And they say that's interesting because they said if you would have walked back to maybe the 80s and even early 90s, that probably the Republicans would fall in line against with Haley.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, I just thought that was a really interesting analysis. That I don't know if I feel like they're right at that, but we'll see.
I also think, but for one anomaly way back in our history, that when you're the president of the United States and you lose an election, that's it. There is no next chapter. I mean, you can say, well, what about Nixon when he was VP and then he lost in California afterwards? Yeah. That's not the same thing. When you're the top of the ticket, when you demand and you lose, that's generally it. You ride off into the sunset and you become Jimmy Carter.
Yeah. How many times would you think that after Mitt Romney lost, would you have run Mitt Romney in the next cycle? When McCain lost, you run McCain in the next cycle. I mean, that's a series of those losses. And you look at the Democrats, and after Hillary lost, she was sitting there going, "Hey, I'm ready. I'm ready." And the Democrats are like, "No, sit down."
We're not. We're not ready.
We saw that last time. Sit down. We did that.
The difference is because the narrative on the election became so toxic on the issue of how many people believed the outcome. That's the only thing that allows this guy to keep fighting. I mean, if he had if people thought he legitimately lost that election, enough people, I don't think we'd be talking about him again. No matter how bad Biden is doing, we wouldn't be talking about him. But there are enough people out there who are convinced that he won the election, but it was stolen away from him by yet unproven allegations. And that's the only reason this guy can keep going.
It is. And part of the thing I think of the Republicans right now is think about Lord of the Rings, okay, as an example. They're different groups and factions, and the Battle of the Five Armies. And I believe that Trump has coalesced a group that's about 35-40% of the Republican electorate. And unless somebody else can put together a series of armies to get above that, I don't think anybody else has a shot. And I don't see Vivek, I don't see Haley, I don't see DeSantis. None of them are going to be able to coalesce more than the base that Donald Trump has. And that's it. For me, if nothing happens, if Trump is the winner in Iowa and New Hampshire, this is over. Don't bother voting anywhere else in the primaries. This is done.
I think that's probably true. One other thing before we cut away, I had a chance to listen to a podcast. Again, this Advisory Opinions, one with these two really smart people. They broke down the hearing, that argument in front of the D.C. Circuit Court of Appeals on the immunity thing that was being argued. Really insightful. I mean, much more than the media had put out there. And so while we talked about things that were legitimate conversations that were had, and they were the most prolific ones reported, there's a lot more going on there. And it sounds like both sides left a lot to be desired in terms of the arguments. But at the end of the day, the conclusion was, look, if you put three judges in a position to have to make a pretty stark decision, one of which is I'm about to rule that a president can order SEAL Team 6 to assassinate a political rival with impunity short of impeachment. They're not going to do that one. They're going to go in a different direction.
And there was, and I texted you yesterday that I had this interesting thought about that, and maybe we could explore that later, that what that means if this is Trump's argument and what that means for the executive. It's the weird thoughts that bounce around in my head while I'm doing other stuff. So yeah, but we got to step aside.
Well, listen, we've screwed up the time again, but that's okay, because I mean, we have no plan when we start talking. It's 6:03, and I like it that way. That's just the way we get the rust kicked off and get back into the swing of things. So let's get right to it. The best part of the 6 o'clock show, in fact, the only truly sponsored part of the 6 o'clock show, is the Thorpe Report. That's coming up, and then we'll do a little bit of the You Choose the News, maybe a loser edition. I don't know what you've carved together. We'll have to stick around to find out. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
Want to take your favorite radio station wherever you go? Well, now there's an app for that. No matter where you are, stream your favorite shows. Tap the app to listen to podcasts. Talk back to your favorite local hosts.
At the tone, leave a message.
Call the show. Set your alarm. Enter contests and win prizes. All in the palm of your hand. Available now for iOS and Android devices in the App Store or Google Play. And best of all, it's free. Download today.
Say goodbye to clutter and hello to convenience when you experience organization transformation in your home. Roll them out shelves. Your clutter transformation experts create affordable Colorado-crafted organized storage solutions. These custom options will maximize and organize your kitchen and bath storage as Roll 'em Out Shelves carefully designs and builds roll-out drawers to fit your space perfectly. To clear the clutter, contact owners Joyce and Brent at Roll 'em Out Shelves to schedule your free in-home estimate today.
George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Get right to it. It's the sponsored Thorpe Report.
Yes, it is. Thank you, sir. Yes, this is proudly sponsored by Lord & Richards. You know, while you are freezing your took us off over the weekend, you should reflect on why you didn't visit Lord & Richards. Hey, I'm not sorry, Lord & Richards. No, it's Lair Fireplace and Patio. What am I doing?
We're trying to get a second?
No. Oh, you know what it was? I was moving to Lord & Richards spot here a second ago. So that's great. That's fantastic. That's okay. So, okay, what again? Oh, yes. Oh, thank you, sir. We're trying to, just restart this again. Yes, we are proudly sponsored by Lair Fireplace and Patio. When you are freezing your took us off this weekend, you should reflect on the fact that you did not visit Lair Fireplace and Patio, not Lord & Richards, but Lair Fireplace and Patio, in order to get the fireplace that would keep you warm and not have your little dangly parts freezing. And they'll take care of you in the spring as well. And wow, this is embarrassing. Okay, we're going to ignore this. Governor Jared Polis verbally issued a disaster declaration yesterday after a bitterly cold temperatures are pushing through our state. Arctic air is going to come through Colorado. It's going to be the wind, not the snow, that is going to be dangerous. We're going to have wind chill factors of 20 to 30 degrees below zero. This type of storm typically hits Colorado 1 or 2 times a year. Friday is going to be our best conditions over the next 5 days today. It's going to get worse and worse until we're probably going to be around -5 degrees Sunday into Monday. Afternoon high expected to be 15 degrees. 3 people were found dead at 2 locations in Parker and unincorporated Douglas County yesterday morning. Law enforcement said the 3 deaths are connected, but have not yet said how. Dispatch got a call from a resident around 9 o'clock in the morning. Body found at the top of Reuter-Hess Incline. It's an unincorporated part of the county. That led them to another place around 10:15 in the morning for a welfare check at a home, and that's when they found the other dead bodies. So they're investigating, but they haven't told us anything else. Hey, man. Yeah, a man fatally stabbed by his son inside a Highlands Ranch home, armed himself with a gun because he lived in fear of his son. That's according to an arrest affidavit. Yeah. Sean Gibson, 34. He was found suffering from multiple gunshot wounds, was on the floor, taken to the hospital for treatment. They recovered a handgun 2 feet from Billy Gibson, found the magazine, was empty, multiple shell casings. They spoke with Sean Gibson's mother and said that he had been diagnosed with schizophrenia in 2018 and was off his medication. And that's probably why that incident happened.
Yep. This mental health stuff, I'm telling you.
It is serious. Deputies from 3 Colorado counties are searching for a man who hasn't been seen since the day his car slid off a highway earlier this month. It happened in Eagle County. Henry Twitchell lives in Elgibel, was last seen in Carbondale on January 4th around 6 in the evening. His car slid off Highway 13, 10 miles south of Meeker. Sheriff's office said they found the car, and they found 1 set of footprints going away from the car, and they haven't been able to locate him through extensive searches. People protested and rioted in Denver in 2020. We're familiar with that. Jax Feldman was just walking home and unprovoked was hit in the face by a pepper ball from one of the DPD people, lost his left eye. Denver City Council is giving him $2.3 million for the lost eye, but he's only going to see half of it. Fort Collins Police.
Oh, dear God. You just, geez, Billy.
Thank you so much.
My
Sorry.
sweet Lord. Oh.
I apologize for that one.
Oh,
Couldn't help it. Couldn't be helped. Fort Collins police have arrested a juvenile in connection with multiple cases of arson this past fall. Suspect is facing multiple felony charges. And after a year of statewide fee on single-use plastic bags, EcoCycle Recycling Center in Boulder estimates 1.5 billion fewer plastic bags were used in Colorado in 2023. You can decide if that is good or bad. That's all I've got, sir. Back to you.
Man, that's fantastic, but that only leaves us with a little bit of time here. I want to cut away so we can come back and do the loser edition of You Can Say It Out Loud with me. You choose the news. Let's stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Let's get right to it. It is the Friday edition, a special edition of You Choose the News with BTs.
Yes, that's right, sir. It is time for us to play the loser edition of You Choose the News.
Man, you are one pathetic loser.
Loser!
Let's go. Loser! You're a loser!
The Losers Club.
Bunch of losers.
You're such a loser. You made me feel like a loser!
She's a loser. You are such a loser. Loser.
Yeah, so we are playing everybody's favorite fake radio news game show, Loser Edition. These are the stories that George felt didn't live up to his standards. Earlier in the weeks, you were giving him a second shot at glory. Here they are.
Oh, goodness.
Yes, the headlines are the triumph of a government solution. Headline number 2, obviously more of an Old Testament fan. Headline number 3, don't follow your dreams if it's too hard. And headline number 4, do they lack the technology or the science? Your choice, sir.
I'm going to say technology.
Yeah, do they like the technology or the science? Well, now if you head to Dubai, you can order specially made ice that comes to you all the way from Greenland. Yes.
What?
They have a company that is taking ice from Greenland and then exports it down to United Arab Emirates, who then turns around and exports it to Dubai and other places. There actually is a company in the UAE that specializes in glacial ice. And so they put the special glacial ice into the cocktail and tell you that it costs an extra $25. I guess that's how it works. Yeah, they're just saying the Arctic ice is sourced directly from natural glaciers.
There.
I know. I'm just like, you don't know how to freeze the water? What are we doing?
It's very hard.
Yes, it's difficult. It's difficult in the desert to figure out. The first time they showed up with ice cubes, they were like, oh, you are a wizard. Yeah, so I don't know. All righty. Don't follow your dreams if it's too hard. Obviously, more of an Old Testament fan or a triumph of a government solution.
Don't follow your dreams if it's too hard.
Yeah, if it's too hard, you really shouldn't do this. We are talking about a former Wayne State University student, David Lopez, 44 years old. He was in the physical education and kinesiology program. He wants to become a gym teacher, but now he is suing the university for $1 million because he said he was discriminated against. Why? Well, David Lopez, aspiring gym teacher, weighs over 400 pounds and has diabetes, hypertension, and asthma, meaning that he can't walk around and do gym teacher stuff, and he can't breathe very well, and so he has to have accommodations, like sitting down and oddly not doing the PE kind of stuff, which I don't know.
I love that.
Yeah, I just kind of figured that if you wanted to be the PE teacher, I don't know, maybe you should be able to do the PE teacher stuff.
You can't discriminate against somebody. Yeah, I mean, it's the same thing with science. If you don't know science, it shouldn't keep you from being a scientist.
No. Same thing with being a pilot. That's silly.
And a radio host.
Exactly.
You don't have to know how to do it to get the job.
Not at all. Not at all. So, yeah, that's the part is the idea is dude's 400 pounds. And I'm like, if you can't stand for the time that you watch the kids play the dodgeball, then no, you don't. Pick something else.
And
that's
how
okay.
hollow are those words? Hey, dig it out, Timmy. You can do it. Run a little faster.
I know. Yeah, exactly. The fact that he wants accommodations to his job as a gym teacher. I just, okay, people. This is why we can't have nice things. Okay, Final story. Triumph of government solution, or obviously I'm more of an Old Testament fan.
Old Testament.
Obviously more of an Old Testament fan. We are traveling to High Point, North Carolina. We are meeting a brand new trainee for a McDonald's restaurant there. She's 44 years old, and she's having some problems with some of her new employees. She is a management trainee. So there's some employees there that are giving her some lip. They're talking back to her. So she calls her husband, 57-year-old Dwayne Waden. No, Dwayne Waden is a pastor. So he's coming down. Yeah, he came down to help out his wife there at the McDonald's. And that is when he turned biblical. He decided to go Old Testament. Evidently, he went Old Testament on him because he starts laying the smackdown. He starts just bop, bop, bop the other employees.
Demon be
yes,
gone.
He starts beating the snot out of them to the point where other employees had to restrain the pastor from trying to baptize one of the employees in the deep fat fryer.
What?
Face first. Yes, that's in the police report.
That's actually right.
I know.
Old Testament,
so
I think.
so the pastor is way more of an Old Testament fan than anything else. So yeah, he came in and just got biblical because like, all right, you want to see a curse and some pestilence, bitches? Yeah, that's what he did already. I think I've caused enough damage. That's it. And
Nice
you choose the
work.
news. Back to you, sir. It's 20 seconds.
All right, listen, folks, stick around. We're going to be joined by Madison Gilbert from the RNC. She's an RNC spokeswoman. She's going to make us smarter about all things going on right now. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. Welcome back to hour 2 of 4 on the George Show 710 KNUS. We'll be with you until 10 o'clock. We turn it over to a guy named Charlie Kirk. He has it for a couple hours, gives it to a dude named Dennis Prager, followed by Seb Gorka, then a guy named Brandon Tatum. But we come back live and local on Monday, 6 to 10 a.m. There is absolutely nothing going on in the political world anywhere next week, nothing noteworthy going on. But to have a discussion about how little there is going on, we're proud to have on the radio today Madison Gilbert from the RNC. Madison, thanks for joining us.
Good to be with you this morning.
Hey, listen, I know you probably do a million of these things. We just do them a little bit differently. I feel like most people want to know who they're talking to, so I always ask them the same thing. Where's home for you? Where did you go to high school? And what was your thing back in high school? I don't care if it was a sport or some other extracurricular, or you had launched individual crime sprees with largely impunity, or whatever it is.
Well, I love it. So I'm from Ohio. I'm actually still based in Ohio. I work remotely for the RNC, Northeast Ohio specifically. I went to Jackson High School in Massillon, Ohio. We're known for our football. So a lot of people across the country actually very familiar with the Massillon Tigers. I did not play football, but I was a figure skater for 10 years.
Get out of town.
Yeah, I trained 6 days a week, multiple hours a day, very serious, had some injuries that ended my career, still miss it to this day. Yeah.
Were they, did somebody come along and hit you in the knee with a metal pipe, or?
If only my story was so exciting, but I had a back and a right ankle injury.
Oh, I'm sorry.
That was rough. Dealt with it for a couple of years.
The figure skating thing is legit. I mean, if you watch that stuff at the Olympic level, and that's really the only time you ever get to see it on the Ocho or something on ESPN, the ability and willingness to do that little high speed triple toe loop, axle, double flip, whatever that is, like when I see them execute that, I think, how many millions of times have you not executed that well? How do you even get to the point where you're confident enough to do that? That's crazy.
Oh, it's an incredible sport. I mean, people see the beauty of it when, you're prepared for competition, when at the Olympics at the very last day. But the brutal mornings and days that go into it, the amount of times you're hitting, basically cement over and over and over again all day, I don't think people realize it's a very, very physical sport.
Well, college then. Did you skate in college?
I did not skate in college. I ended up going to Ohio State undergrad and law school, spent about 7 years in Columbus, a very short stint in DC before coming back to Ohio.
Now, hang on one sec. I've never heard of Ohio State. Do they have any sports there?
Maybe a little team called the Ohio State Buckeyes.
Yeah, I watched them in the national championship, not this year, but I'm kidding. You went there for law school as well?
I did. I graduated law school there back in 2017.
Okay, and what have you been doing with the law?
So I practiced law for a little bit, ended up becoming the Republican nominee for Congress in Ohio's 13th congressional district in the last cycle in 22. Very heated, one of those top targeted races in 22, and then ended up after that coming on to the RNC officially in August. And then before that, spent some time while also practicing law, working in politics. I was the spokesperson for the president's inauguration back in 2017 for President Trump. I was on his advisory board and diversity council, did a lot of work in politics, wrote some columns for Washington Times and The Hill for some years, and kind of have been all over the place doing a little bit of law, a little bit of politics, but super excited to be full-time on board, working towards big victories this year for our party.
Talk about that, if you would. First off, I'm always fascinated to hear the guests that we get on here, their backgrounds, but it's also very depressing because all the stuff that you've accomplished, and what are you, like 20 or something? I mean, it's just ridiculous how much you've already gotten done.
I'll be 32 in March.
Well, listen,
I'm still claiming my age for a couple more years.
Yeah. When you're 32, you can claim that age. If we were in the 6 o'clock hour, I'd use the F word, but instead I'll just say screw you for being 32. But nonetheless, what's going on next week that matters, and how? Listen, everything seems to be, in my opinion, a distraction from the importance of the primary, and that is. You've got all the Trump stuff in court. You've got all everything seems to be a bit of a distraction while we're trying to get through this primary process to decide who's going to be our nominee for president. What's going on next week?
So on Monday, we have the very first official kickoff of the primary season with the Iowa caucuses. And that's just 8 days away from, of course, our very first in the nation primary in New Hampshire. So we're just one step closer to ultimately having our nominee, one step closer to November. Really, all it's about is making sure that we have that nominee and that we as a national party have that road and infrastructure built for them to drive on day one to get them hitting the ground running and making sure they have whatever it takes to get them across the finish line. So we're actively paying attention to what's going on in the primaries and the caucuses. We were very proud of being able to put on a fair and transparent primary process, very dissimilar to what the Democrats have done, and we're ready to win. And we're doing everything to look back at 2022, look back at 2020, and how we can change some of those results people as the Republican Party weren't happy with.
We can see that Iowa historically could be the end of some campaigns. And if I'm not asking you to weigh in on this, I'm just saying if Ron DeSantis comes in third in Iowa, it's over. I mean, if he's a distant second, it's over. But we haven't seen Iowa be a kingmaker. And with respect to our good buddies out there in Iowa, how important is Iowa in the scheme of things in terms of the nomination? As you know, Trump didn't win Iowa last time. Does it matter as much?
I mean, I think they're all going to be important. We're excited for Iowa. I know the candidates are excited for Iowa. It's always exciting. The caucuses are very different, very unique. Obviously, something me being from Ohio that I, wasn't used to growing up. So it's been really cool to watch how that process plays out. People have to be there by 7 o'clock. Something interesting is if you're there like a minute late, you can't participate. So
Really?
With all the snow and so with all the snow and everything going on in Iowa, everybody has to get there at 7. It's just that closed door meeting, in all of the 99 counties and the different areas in Iowa. They'll caucus, they'll release their results, and then we'll move forward to New Hampshire. But I think, again, once we do have that presumptive nominee, we'll just be very, very focused on November and focused on making sure that we're sharing that message and we're sharing it in the right places, that we're reaching the voters where they are, and we're winning those votes we didn't win in 2022.
Madison, when do we know the presumptive nominee?
I mean, that remains to be seen. We'll see what happens, with the campaigns and with the results.
Is Super Tuesday the end? I mean, if right now, I think if anyone had any dollars to bet, they would bet it on Trump, and yet we still go through this process. Is Super Tuesday the end of the line in terms of that presumptive nominee? We're going to know by then who it's going to be.
I mean, there's a good chance that's the case, but it's not guaranteed. So we'll see.
The state of Colorado, the Republican Party, has a faction of it that has sought to endorse President Trump in advance of our own primary. And we get to be part of that Super Tuesday chaos as well. I'm not asking you to comment on the party because it's not the party who's seeking this, a faction of it. Any thoughts on that in terms of how we seek a nominee for our party?
Again, the voters are going to decide. The primaries are all going to be important. I think it's very important that as a national party, we are part of a fair and transparent process. I think the Democrats should have done the same. They're obviously not doing that, as we see. And then, of course, the Democrats know they can't win on policy on top of it. So they're doing things like what we saw happen in your state with trying to take people off the ballot, which is just absolutely insane. So
Absolutely
we obviously got
insane
involved
and
right
unjust.
away. Oh, 100%. I mean, it's a complete misinterpretation of the 14th Amendment. We got involved right away, filed an amicus brief, set aside funds. We're supporting President Trump in the efforts. And as an attorney, I say all the time, I'm like, we wouldn't want to see this happen to a Democrat just as much as we don't want to see it happen to President
Agreed.
Trump. What's wrong is wrong and what's right is right. And I have major, major problem with the fact that politics have gotten to a point in which people have no morals. People have no respect for the Constitution. I was joking around on our weekly show that we do at the RNC yesterday saying, hey, can we have some extra Constitution copies sent over to the DNC and to the White House because it seems like they could use them. These people really have no respect for the Constitution, no respect for the nation's laws, and no morality. And it's really disappointing to see this happening.
You're a law talking person, so I'll bring up. I'm certain that the Supreme Court ends up reinstating Trump on all the ballots he's been taken off of through this tortured interpretation of Section 3 of the 14th. However, I'm really invested in the idea that for the health of the country and for the finality of this decision to move on, however narrow it needs to be written, I really want to see this as a 9-0 vote. I don't know if that's possible, with Ketanji Brown Jackson and Sotomayor. I don't know if that's possible, but if it is, a 9-0 vote on this would at least close the door for any future argument of wiggle room on this nonsense or anything like that. I don't know if you've had any thoughts on that being a legal person yourself.
Yeah, I mean, I think it would be surprising if it's anything but a 9-0 decision. I think if we can have faith in any court in the country, it should be the Supreme Court of the United States to do the right thing and to have a fair legal interpretation of this. Again, as you say, we're living in difficult, different times with being 2024 and, the politicization of everything. But I do have faith and hope that we will see a 9-0 decision. I'm happy with the winning decision in general, but a 9-0 would be great to see because I do think this should be pretty cut and dry.
Any thoughts on, we go from Iowa to when's New Hampshire? It's like 15 minutes later or something like that?
Yeah, it's the following Tuesday.
Any thoughts on New Hampshire? Very different processes. And I think we take it for granted. We just throw around the idea of Iowa caucus, New Hampshire primary, but they're very different. And you've already educated us on something I didn't know about, which is the rules are so tight in Iowa that if you get to the place a minute or too late, weather or otherwise related, too bad, so sad.
Yeah, exactly. So people have to be on time. Something some of the Gen Z people struggle with nowadays. We'll see what happens in Iowa. But no, I think Iowans are used to the snow. I think we'll see most people be able to make it and be able to caucus. And they're used to the caucus rules while the rest of us are like, wow, that's so weird. We don't have that in Ohio and Colorado and everywhere else. They've been doing caucuses for years. And so I think they'll be prepared and ready to go on Monday.
I think that there's nothing more satisfying for a guy in his late 90s as I am to hear a 32-year-old throw shade at Gen Z. Thank you for that moment. That was that was super wonderful. Procedurally speaking, what's the next couple big things that take place after New Hampshire, and when do they occur?
So obviously we'll continue to move through those primaries. One of the things we'll be working on from a national party perspective in the meantime is continuing, of course, to fundraise, continuing to work on our Bank Your Vote and Protect Your Vote initiatives. These are going to be huge. And so we're talking as we go through all the different states and we look to Nevada and we look to, Super Tuesday, and we're, looking at some of these states that are going to be very competitive in November. We're encouraging the voters that we're meeting on the campaign trail to visit bankyourvote.com. We want Republicans voting early. I hate early voting, so I understand why people have been hesitant to get on board with this. But the reality is, until the laws change in the prospective states back to the way they used to be, and if they change back to the way they used to be, we have to be playing the same game the Democrats are playing, or we're going to lose. It's a money game at the end of the day. And when you, as a Republican, a hardcore Republican, vote on day one, we might only spend $5 chasing your vote versus upwards of 30 plus if you wait until election day. So people ask me all the time, what can we do different, like to not lose like we did in 2022? Well, this is what you can do different. You can vote early. You can encourage others to vote early, because that $25+ differential can be used to chase ballots of low propensity voters, to chase ballots of independents who maybe haven't voted Republican in a while, to chase even maybe disenfranchised Democrats that are really unhappy with the Biden administration, the way things have been going. We need to win these votes to win. And in order to do that, we have to conserve resources. As a national party, our job is to get out the vote. And that's the way that we can help do that and help ensure victory for our candidates, not only for our presidential candidates, but for the Senate candidates, congressional candidates as well.
We're talking with Madison Gilbert, lawyer / figure skater / graduate of some never heard of before university. When you talk about we don't like the early voting thing, do you have a personal position on how you'd like to see the election process go, or does the RNC have a favored system that it would like to see?
Well, the RNC, I mean, we play by the rules that are in front of us, and we want to make sure that our candidates win. Our job is to get out the vote. But I always talk about like my personal position, because I think it's important, because as Republicans, there is diversity within the party. Some people are fine with early voting. Some people don't really like it and didn't want to see things change this way. But the reality is, right up under us, the laws have changed in so many states. And so what I think is great is now post the new year, the RNC has state-specific websites, and those can be used as not only a place to fit voting early, but as a resource, so that you can say or go see in your state, when can I vote? How can I vote? I mean, things are just changing by the minute sometimes. I do this every day for a living, and I'm like catching up on stuff. What states is ballot harvesting legal? What states can you request an absentee, months in advance for people who need to do that? So the resource aspect of it, I think, is going to be critically important as well.
I appreciate hearing the perspective on the cost to the party and the candidates of chasing those yet unvoted ballots. I hadn't thought of it in those terms. Usually I try to tell folks, if you want your text to stop coming in, if you want the emails to stop bludgeoning you, people coming by the house, people calling you, vote. because as soon as you fall off that list of outstanding ballots, the party and candidates lose interest in you until they need you again for voting. But your perspective is a good one from the standpoint of resources, like let's get those things done. And what I've seen is we used to be that party, Madison. We used to be the party of get up early in the morning, go to work real hard and follow all the rules. And that applied to early voting too. If you could vote on day 1 of 13, you voted on day 1. What I've seen is a shift, and there's a lot of reasons for it. Some of it is questioning the integrity of the system and all this other stuff. But I have seen more and more conservatives and Republicans hang on to their ballots till the bitter end, as if it provides them some greater guarantee of integrity in their voting. Have you noticed that?
Yeah, and that's why a part of what we've also done is open an entire new department with our election integrity department. We're focused on not only encouraging people to bank their vote, but making sure that we're protecting the vote along the way. We recognize there's been issues in the states, and so we're involved now in 72 lawsuits across the country, some in conjunction with President Trump, some not. We're also, working behind the scenes on things people don't see, like making sure voter rolls get purged. We don't want dead people on the voter rolls, things like that. Putting in public or private pressure campaigns in the states to make sure things get handled properly. We're encouraging people to go to GOP.com, sign up to be a poll worker, a poll watcher. The list goes on, but we're actively involved on that end as well.
To that extent, whatever results come out of Iowa based on the system that you know well, and that come out of the primary in New Hampshire, should Republicans trust the outcome of those two processes, of the Iowa caucus and the New Hampshire primary?
Well, we're going to do everything we can to make sure that they can do that. And that's why we're involved in all of these realms that I mentioned. So, yeah, I think the voters should feel confident going into this year that all eyes are on what's going on and that will protect your vote, or but in every way possible from a party perspective.
And nothing you've seen or heard of or worry about that would suggest that the process is corruptible or corrupted and that people should be wary of their vote. Nothing you've seen so far.
Again, everything we're seeing, we're addressing.
What have you seen?
We're talking about purging voter rolls. We're talking about lawsuits. We're talking about what's going on in Colorado. We're talking about when we saw some issues with absentee ballot things that Democrats were playing around with in New York. So we immediately sued Governor Kathy Hochul and the Democrats in New York on this. They were trying to have, absentee ballot voting in a way that was already struck down in an election in New York. And pretty much they knew, and they said at the time a couple years back, that if this was struck down and the voters voted against it in this referendum, that it would not be legal for them to do it. They had and circumvented the law and did it anyways. And so we're looking at things like that happening, ways in which they're trying to legally change things up underneath us to make it easier to vote in a way that's not proper, to make it easier and what many call to cheat, right? And so we want to make sure we're protecting that vote. And so we're doing that everywhere we can.
Madison Gilbert, she's with the RNC, a spokesperson. Thank you for making us smarter on a lot of this stuff. I hope we get a chance to have you back on as the process unfolds. Do you know what the last day of the last primary / caucus thing is? Like, when does this thing all come to an end on paper?
I think our very last one is in April. It's actually a good question. I'm pretty sure we're in April. I'm still in January right now.
I know. I'm sure you're focused on the battle in front of you, but I love the April question mark. That sounds like me in law school answering a question. Marbury versus Madison? Anyway, speaking of Madison, thank you. Thank you, Madison Gilbert, for the time and the interview. We'll have you on in the future. Good luck with everything.
Thank you so much.
Take care. Hey, folks, I don't know what you heard in that interview. Of course, there's not going to be a way to have a deep dive with anyone from the RNC on preferences for candidates or any of that stuff. The process itself is interesting to me, how different Iowa is from New Hampshire. But should we believe the outcome was sort of one of the things I wanted to get to the bottom of, is like, listen, right now, are you participating in the caucus in Iowa? Do you trust the caucus in Iowa at a different level than you trust the votes? And that has applicability here too, folks, because even though we have the presidential primary, and that was something that voters put on us, we do have precinct caucuses and assemblies. And do you trust that process more than you trust the ballot that you vote and go I don't know if you drop it off in the mail. I don't. I go put it in the little drop box. I'm interested to know what you think about that. And we'll continue to talk about the big national politics stuff. But we're going to be joined by Sherry Pife here in just a moment. Get a little more local and a little more aggressive in terms of some of the stories that the mainstream media just won't report on. Stick around. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. Here comes our girl, right here on 710 KNUS, George Brauchler on the George Show, joining us on the VIP line, Sherry Pife from Complete Colorado, page 2. Sherry, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me, and I apologize for Tuesday.
Well, let's get right down to it. What bar were you at that had no cell coverage? What? Where is that?
Oh, no. No, I've been having problems with my phone. People could call and I couldn't answer. I would try to call out and my phone wouldn't call out. And finally, overnight, Monday into Tuesday, it just went and there was nothing left. So I had to, because of the fact that it was not under its initial 1-year warranty, I had to send it back to, the scam warranties you pay $18 a month for. So I had to wait for another one to get here. Unfortunately, it got here yesterday. So here we are.
Nice. Is it a brand new phone or just a copy of the one that you had before?
It's a copy. They say that the phone could be new or refurbished, so you never know what you got. My guess is it's refurbished.
I love the new or refurbished. We don't know what we're going to give you, and you don't either. So
right, exactly.
That's magical. Listen, I don't know if you know this, but it feels like Colorado Republican politics has come off the tracks a little bit with all of these announcements of I'm not running for my old seat anymore at the congressional level. What's going on?
That's a really good question. 2 years ago, we were all talking about all the Democrats that were stepping down and how nice it was going to be to, this, that, and the next thing. And now we're seeing all of the Republicans stepping down. I think I don't know that I would want to be in office today if I was a Republican. I don't know that I want to be a Republican office holder today.
Talk about that. Why is that?
The general public just does not understand the meaning. And I hate to say that, but they don't, because everybody that I talk to, after I have a 5-minute conversation with them, they're like, well, okay, that kind of makes sense. They don't understand how it works when you're not in the majority. I really would not want to be a public official in Colorado right now as a Republican. The term rhino is being used so much right now with our Republican representatives and senators in Colorado because they compromise when they go onto the House or the Senate floor. But what people don't understand, when that whole sausage making thing is taking place and these bills are being, vomited out onto the floor day after day after day, and our Republican legislators are trying to work to make those bills not as horrible as they're going to pass anyway. That's what happens when you have a supermajority. Bills are going to pass no matter what the Republicans do. So our Republican representatives work on these bills to bring amendments to them to make them a little bit more palatable. And when you do that, when it comes time to vote on the bill, no matter how much you don't like the bill in general, you still have to vote yes. Because if you got your amendment on there and you got the Democrats to go along with your amendment and you got them to compromise, you better not be stabbing them in the back on the day that you vote on,
or they won't listen to you anymore. We have seen this historically, especially recently when you're in a super minority, as we are in the House, and almost a super minority in the Senate. Do you have a bill or two in mind when you talk about that scenario?
Holy cow. I don't know. The one bill that is bothering me the most right now that I'm really hoping that the legislators can get to and that they can find a way to compromise. I just don't know that there's compromise on this bill, but it's House Bill, and I think it's 1039. It's a bill that would make it discrimination for any school employee to not call a child by what they're calling a non-legal name change, regardless of what the parents say, regardless of if you do not agree to call this child by what he wants to be called by, they will consider it to be discrimination.
You're right. It is House Bill 24-1039. And let me see here if I can find something super quickly on that. It is, dang it, I'm right here. Here it is. It is called Concerning Non-Legal Name Changes for Students in School. And in that bill summary that they give you before they get into the language, it requires public schools and institute charter schools too to use a student's preferred name if a preferred name is requested by the student, and deems a school's refusal to use a student's preferred name a form of discrimination. This is all independent of any knowledge or input by the parent. And I will tell you, Sherry, as the guy who was the fly in the ointment his entire time in high school, whether it was at Mullen or Bear Creek, I know for a fact I would have coordinated dozens of young men on the football team and soccer team to show up on day one of this going live and declaring to be called, I want to be called Elvis. I want to be called Michael Jackson. I want to be called Jesus, and just stick and make them figure out a way to not do that.
Well, when I first saw this bill, and I'll phrase this very carefully so you don't have to worry about breaking any FCC rules here. But if I was in high school, I would have been the one going around telling my teachers and my administrators that I want to be called Queen. It rhymes with witch. It's just got a different letter in front of it.
Yeah.
That's what I want to be called. I do not understand when we have some of the highest property taxes in the nation, when we have some of the most obnoxious regulations and red tape when it comes to developing land in a state that everybody wants to beat their chest to the homeless conversation about. And when we have some of the highest taxes, travel taxes and cigarette taxes and sales taxes and food taxes and every tax you can think of in the nation, and our cost of living is one of the highest in the nation, why what Stephanie Vigil, Faith Winter, and Janice Marchman think is a good idea is to spend time allowing children of any age. I don't see any age in this bill. So this isn't like it starts at 17, it started at 5 when somebody goes into kindergarten. So allow these kids to go, teacher, I want to be called Rudolph.
This is insane. This is insane. I don't know how you can view this as anything other than another assault on parental rights and parental input on parents in general. This is cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs.
Oh, there's no doubt. There is absolutely no doubt. I just don't understand it.
This is
every
Faith
bill
Winter,
that
by the way. The notorious Faith Winter is the one sponsoring this, along with the other names that you mentioned there. I don't know where this thing is going to be assigned. It's in the House Committee for Education. Nobody assigned this thing to Veterans Affairs, huh?
No. But the folks that are on that House committee, that House Education Committee, you've got Mary Bradfield, not Mary Bradfield. You've got Mary Young and Tammy Story, and those folks sitting on this, Jennifer Bacon, Barbara McLaughlin. If you think they're going to say no to this bill, I don't know what to tell you. I got some swampland I'll sell you, because this is in an election year, nonetheless. But hey, whatever.
Listen to where it's going to be used here. A public school or institute charter school shall address a student by the student's preferred name and use the student's preferred name in school, during extracurricular activities, on rosters, attendance lists, yearbooks, student identification cards, and any other unofficial school recording requested by the student without requiring the student to obtain a court-ordered name or gender change or to change the student's official records. A school refusal to respect a student's request to use a preferred name is discriminatory. Such a refusal includes the refusal to use a student's preferred name in school, during extracurricular activities, on roster, blah, 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 blah. Oh my God. I mean, this thing is ripe for chaos. There are kids out there who are smarter than I am, but have that same commitment to chaos that I do. This thing is going to be insane to apply. And it won't just be people who are like, please call me Sally. It'll be something else, right? Like craziness.
You will have animal names. You will have vulgar names. I mean, I can see, the starting 5 for the boys basketball team coming up with, I remember when my son was in high school, and they would pick their walk-up music to go up to bat, on the baseball team. And there were days where the boys would all get together and they would do silly things like, pick walk-up songs off of a Little Mermaid soundtrack or something. And, because that's what high school boys do. Those are the kinds of
Two
things
Live Crew.
they do.
Something else, Sherry, that's going to happen is you're going to get, remember when Bart Simpson would call in to Moe's and ask for people by names that were just funny, silly names like Michael Hunt? Do you know what I mean? There's going to be people that say, I want to be called that, or I want to be called Phil McCracken or something like that. That's going to happen, and they will be powerless to stop it.
Well, and
you can change it as much as you want. You can change it as much as you want.
And here's the other part. Who all does that extend to? Okay, so you're 12 years old and you decide that you want to be called Oprah. Okay, and
I did
everywhere. And your class now decides to go on a field trip someplace, and I don't know, you're being introduced to your guide that has taken you around the Denver Museum, and you're 12 years old, and you're a white boy, and you're at the museum, and your guide is asking everybody their names, and you all of a sudden tell your guide Oprah. And so a little bit further down the line, the guide at the museum has a question, and when he calls on Oprah, he doesn't call Oprah by name. Is it an extension? Because it says off campus, other activities. Who is going to be held responsible for making sure that these kids are called by things that their parents don't know they're being called by?
That's the other thing, is that how do you exclude from this entire process parents from this? The parents that are not only charged with the long-term care of their children to help raise them, but also emotionally invested in their well-being. And, oh, by the way, footing the bill for this nonsense as taxpayers and property owners.
Mm-hmm. Because that's what they do. Pretty soon, the teachers, I honestly don't know why anybody would want to be a teacher anymore, because the teachers are now being forced to make the decisions and the determinations and the judgment calls of things that parents should be doing. Your schools are now raising your children because they think they know better. I said to somebody the other night, people laugh and say, "Don't California my Colorado." I'm pretty confident that the Democrats out in California are saying, "Don't Colorado my California."
That's what I think too.
Because we are no longer following California. We're wanting California to follow us. Exactly.
Under the caption, the Democrats hate the Second Amendment, there's another draft bill. I'm trying to find all the text for it. I can't do it yet online. Maybe you've seen it, but it's called Bill Topic, Prohibited Carrying Firearms in Sensitive Spaces. Have you seen that one?
I haven't seen the bill, but I've heard about it. And I can tell you that a lot of where it's coming from is this back a while back, last year or the year before or whatever, when all of these little communities, after the governor decided to allow Democrats to get rid of, the preemption clause in being able to make your own laws within your community in Colorado when it came to gun safety. Back when all that was going on and all these communities were starting to make these bills, one of the conversations that was very popular, in Lafayette and Superior and Boulder and all these other places, was this idea that you couldn't carry in public places. And the reason, or in certain public places, and the reason that it ended up getting killed everywhere is because the city attorneys would always be like, well, there's this thing that you could always do this under sensitive areas and this and that and the next thing, but that's going to end up having to be litigated in court, and we're going to have the Supreme Court determine exactly what sensitive areas is. So I don't think, we should be doing that as a community. Maybe we should sit back and wait and let the state take that on as a larger issue. And then, if and when it does go back to court because of this, we can, if the state wins, then we can do it. But we just don't have the resources to manage the lawsuit. So
I do want to see if this thing drops. It's supposed to be filed by whatever the 5th was. It looks like, I'm just looking at a screenshot on social media, Sherry, but it's got Tom Sullivan on it, which would be a shock to no one. And then some other people, I'm not really sure who they are, but here's it under that bill summary kind of area. This thing looks like it's been cut and put there. God, I really want to see the rest of the text. One of the things it says is the bill repeals a concealed carry permit holder's authority to have a handgun in the permittee's vehicle on school property. And here's the kicker: carry a concealed handgun on school property while on duty as a school security officer. That is a direct assault on groups like Faster Colorado,
Okay,
which
so
provide firearms training to these teachers so that the school districts who've decided they want armed teachers in their schools, this hijacks that and blows it up.
Well, and as I said at the start of this, I hadn't seen that bill yet, so I didn't realize that was a part of it. And that's exactly what it does. And, you know, I've been saying for years that it was only a matter of time before the legislature tried to do something that would kill the ability, because right now in the Colorado Constitution, school districts are able to hire anybody they want to act as security. And so that basically opened it up for districts to make $1, $10, $5 contracts with anybody that was already a district employee to be allowed to conceal carry. And there are school districts, you know, Bennett in Colorado is one of them, that are very proud of the fact that they allow their staff to carry. They post it on their doors. They tell people, you know, anybody in this building could be carrying a gun when you enter, you know, without ill regard of anything. There are school districts across the state that have their teachers conceal carrying, and they have gone through extensive training to be able to do that. You're right. Faster Colorado, which is Laura Carno. And I thought for years that it was only a matter of time before Democrats tried to seal that up. And so, yeah, that's attacking that part of the Colorado law. That's exactly what it's doing.
I'm wondering now what happens with the rest of this legislative session. There's probably bills out there, Sherry, you haven't been able to stay on top of that are just grenades that have been rolled under the democracy tent, the freedom tent. Are there others out there that you're tracking already where you're like, uh-oh?
Not quite yet. You know, there's a bunch that we heard about in off session. You know, waiting for the ball to drop, waiting for the bills to drop, waiting to see what they are. But I'm sure within the next week or two, I'll probably, you know, just like last session, have a list of about 30 bills where you just scratch your head and you go, huh? Who, you know, what were you smoking this morning when you got up and went into work? You know, it's what we're becoming accustomed to in Colorado. And people better get used to it.
Speaking of waiting for a ball to drop, did you get to listen to the State of the State address yesterday?
No, I did not. I was actually in a meeting and all day and could not listen to it. So unfortunately, I cannot help you on that one.
What's your favorite
Not that
part?
I'm sad.
No,
not
kidding.
that I'm sad that I missed it. Not that I'm sad that I missed it. Let me tell you.
At the national level, and you're a very local focused person, but I know you keep track of this. At the national level, prognostications on Tuesday?
Donald Trump. I really do believe it's going to be Donald Trump. I think the Democrats have shot themselves in the foot when it comes, because all they do every time they file one more charge and every time they accuse him of one more thing, all they do is allow him to gain more and more support.
Do you think it changes anything for DJT if he's convicted in any one of these 800 trials against him?
No, I think we have a president ruling from jail. Nothing in the Constitution that says he can't.
That's crazy. Sherry Pife, listen, we could talk to you all morning, but we can't actually talk to you all morning. There's rules and stuff. But thank you for coming on board. You can all find Sherry Pife's great local reporting, especially the stuff that the legacy media folks just refuse to cover. Maybe it's a lack of resources. Maybe it's a lack of will. We don't know. But you can check them out at Complete Colorado, page 2. I think we just lost Sherry, by the way. Yeah, we lost Sherry. Imagine it's that brand new phone that refurbished phone that she was talking about. Hey, stick around. We're going to get to some phone calls at 303-696-1971. Your text, George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. My thanks to Sherry Pike from Complete Colorado, page 2. You can find all of her great reporting that just nobody else is interested in trying to get to the bottom of. Sherry's phone is a problem, obviously, the refurbished phone. So don't call her. Just check her out on the Complete Colorado, page 2. We've got a caller on the line here at 303-696-1971. Justin, you're on 710. What do you think, sir?
Are you friends with Richard Rabner?
Richard Rabner, friends? I mean, I'm friendly with Richard. I hired him a while ago to be a prosecutor for me, and he runs the show out in Lincoln County for John Kellner, who's the current district attorney. But I haven't spoken to Richard in years.
Okay. Just one of the candidates, he's prosecuting a case of one of the candidates that you're going to be moderating.
He's prosecuting a case against who?
Justin Schreiber. Are you aware that the...
Hang on, aware? Is Justin, hang on. Justin, is it you? Are you Justin Schreiber?
Yes, I am.
Okay. Are you running for Congress?
Yes, I am.
Okay, well, great. Well, so we have this great Women of Weld event next Thursday up there at Fort Lupton at the Rec Center. I'll be there with Ernest Lunning. We'll be doing CD4 and CD8. It'll be good to see you. What's on your mind?
Oh, nothing. I just, I've got some false charges that I'm dealing with. The Lyman, Colorado Police Department actually swatted my home, and
what are you charged with?
For commercial bribery for reporting a burglar in my home.
Well, they wouldn't just say, hey, if you report a burglary, you get charged with commercial bribery. There's got to be something else going on. What's the commercial aspect?
Hey, you know what? That's the question we've been trying to figure out for a whole year, and they've been hiding body cam videos and all kinds of stuff.
That's interesting. What's the bribery allegation?
They don't have one. A motion for dismissal. A motion for dismissal has been filed.
Well, that's terrific then. You'll have the opportunity to have this thing litigated in front of a judge, and if it shouldn't move forward, it won't. That's great. Is that why you called in, though, to talk about the charges against you, or?
No, I called to see what your connection is with Richard Rabner, because it almost seems like this is election interference and witness tampering, what you're doing.
What I'm doing?
Yes, you are moderating.
How am I doing it?
I don't know. That's why I'm questioning you. You need to be questioned.
You've alleged this sounds like election interference and tampering, that I'm doing it by moderating. How?
If you know Richard well, it doesn't look good. I'm just saying, it just doesn't look good.
Buddy, I think you've got the wrong guy here. I've hired probably 70 to 90 prosecutors in my time as a district attorney. Richard's one of them. The mere fact that I hired him, and he has been doing this job for another DA for the past 3+ years, in no way suggests that we have a relationship that puts you at any greater risk. Unless you think you're going to confess to something at the debate itself, I'm not sure how anything I do could be viewed as election interference or tampering. Well, that's it. What an interesting call from Justin. Good luck, man. We'll see you in a couple weeks. Stick around. We got Paul Lundeen coming up next. He's a superstar state senator. Stick around. George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
This is awesome. I don't know where George is. Hello, George. Are you there?
I'm here.
Oh, you are, liar. I was talking to you off the air.
Did we already play music?
Yeah. And I sang for a little bit, and there was we did some virtual betting, and
so let me just get this straight. Every hour we get back on.
In theory, yeah. I'm sorry to disappoint you. I know.
There was a moment about 1 minute ago where I was in the middle of something. I looked at my watch and used a little bit of profanity.
Yeah.
Hustled back over here to the microphone to realize that the show actually does continue whether I'm here or not.
Yes, it does. Surprisingly enough. Yeah.
And
our guest is ready as well. Yeah.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yeah.
Hey, listen, my name's George. This is the George Show. You're halfway through the Friday show right before a nice, super chilly weekend. My thanks to Sherry Pife in the last hour, as well as Madison Gilbert. This hour, of course, we're going to be joined by a constitutional conservative superstar in the state Senate. He's going to update us, I hope, on not only what's going on under the Gold Dome while the Senate hovers around one vote away from being a super minority, but also about feedback on the state of the state by Governor Polis yesterday. Joining us right now on the VIP line, Paul Lundeen. Sir, thanks for joining us.
My pleasure, George. It's always good to be with you, even when you're not really here. But I'm glad you did show up.
So ridiculous. I just this is another one of the downsides of trying to do the show remotely from time to time. Is that there's nobody here to yell your name down the hall. So, there's no, like, you are on in 30 seconds. Get down here. We're in weather. None of that.
My first career out of college, my degree was in journalism, read economics and history as well. But my degree was in journalism from NYU. And one of the professors said in broadcasting, he was a former Canadian broadcast company executive. He said, in broadcasting, you must get on the air on time and off the air on time. Whatever happens in between, well, that's okay. So at least we're on the air finally. So that's good.
It's true. It's true in this way. Like, I can talk as much as I want, but at about, let's say, 56 and 50 seconds, there's not a single thing Billy or I can do to stay on the air. However, when they give us command, right here at about 8:03, whatever, I don't have to be here for it. It's just going to happen anyway without me.
Correct. Well, I would, if my mic had been open, I would have taken the show for you. Good morning, everybody. It's going to be a chilly weekend. This is Paul Lundeen. I am the minority leader of the Republican caucus in the state Senate, and I'm guest hosting for the next 30 seconds for George Brauchler. George, are you going to join us?
Billy, this is a great idea on a couple different levels. You should make note of this and tell Kelly about it. We could use this maybe in the future. Sir, first off, thanks for taking time out of your legislative morning. What is this, day 118 left or something like that?
Yeah, exactly. We're 2 days in. We're in day 3 today. We have had the obligatory opening day speeches, and everybody's trying to frame up what they want to do. The governor, of course, in his state of the state, did his framing work yesterday. And what I'm going to report out to the people that are listening to you, as you correctly and generously identified me as a constitutional conservative, what I see, what I hear is the people of Colorado, the small businesses of Colorado, crying out for relief from an overweening government that is intruding horribly into their lives, overtaxing them and over-regulating them. And the second thing that I would encourage people to think about is the Democrats will, as they have done multiple times, offer up a number of things that are not solutions, or they are minuscule efforts to solve an issue, and call it a solution. And we're back right now, back into that game where the governor has identified, we're going to do something about affordable housing. But then the sorts of things that they will offer are partial solutions at best, minuscule solutions in most ways, and not fundamentally addressing the issue that the people are crying out for relief on. And that is the framing that I think is the honest framing of what's going on under the Gold Dome in Denver right now.
With regard to the state of the state that Governor Polis gave yesterday, what jumped out at you?
Well, the most interesting thing that jumped out at me was when he correctly, and I'm going to give Governor Polis props for this, when he correctly identified that we're overtaxing the people of Colorado. We have massive reserves, more than we should have, and we need to cut our taxes. The Republicans, of course, were on their feet saying, yes, We need to cut property taxes. We need to cut income taxes. We need to provide tax relief to the people of Colorado. And every single one of the Democrats sat on their hands. They didn't get out of their chairs. They didn't even applaud. They don't like the idea of letting the people keep their own money. And, they want to, quite frankly, take Tabor apart piece by piece. They've been doing it year after year after year, trying to dismantle Tabor. So when the governor says taxes are too high, reserves are too big, we need to give the money back to the people and lower taxes, the Democrats sit on their hands.
It is interesting that we have a sound of that as well that we'll play later. But in going through his words, that one did jump out at me when he focused on housing, and that seemed to be a big part of this. I just found it a bit ironic, if not hypocritical, that the guy who watched voters soundly reject HH and then just kind of bent a knee to a legislature that came back. You were there, Paul, and basically said, the problem with HH was we asked for voter input. Let's just do this piecemeal through 4 separate bills. He signed off on all of them. Now comes back and says we need to do something to offer relief to homeowners. What the hell's going on?
Well, say one thing, do another. I mean, that's always a risk in politics. And I will tell you, in Colorado, where the Democrats have the raw political power, they control the House chamber by a super duper majority. They are one vote away from controlling the Senate chamber by a super majority. And we must hang on to that one vote. It's critical. And of course, the governor's a Democrat. They can do things like they did with regard to property taxes. In the last couple of days of the regular session, they rammed through using raw political power, overrunning and riding right over the top of Republican objections, a property tax not a relief measure, nothing serious, and a Tabor offending idea. Of course, when it gets to the people of Colorado are smart. They saw Senate Bill 303, which became HH at the ballot, for what it was, an effort to tear Tabor apart, and a minuscule, not effective, not conclusive property tax reduction idea on the back of destroying the Taxpayer Bill of Rights. And so the people rejected it. So now we go back into a session, and the governor has to acknowledge that the people have spoken on this issue, but he won't necessarily demand that his side of the aisle, that the Democrats actually give back to the people the authority that they should have, which is control over their own wallets.
What are they going to end up proposing then that they're going to try to jam under the umbrella property owner tax relief? Or what are they going to propose?
Well, there's a tax commission that was created during the special session. It's headed by a Democrat senator who is notorious for wanting to hang on to every nickel that the Democrats can hang on to. So the $4.3 billion in reserves we have, they certainly don't want to let that slide back to the people. But that tax commission will report back. We are demanding that in this rubric, this theme of relief, that the people of Colorado actually have predictable tax rates with regard to their property taxes. And property taxes are principally a local district matter, either local county government, local fire district, local school district, etc. But the state does have the authority and the ability to set the assessment ratio, the rate at which things are taxes. And for years, we had the Gallagher Amendment that protected homeowners. And I opposed the idea of undoing Gallagher. And I said at the time, we're going to go right back to taxing people out of their homes. We shouldn't be doing this. But we're back on that cycle now. And so they acknowledge there's a problem. And it comes down to, are they willing to listen to two things? The Republican voices that are saying the people should be the first thing we think about, not all the local taxing jurisdictions and state government, but the people. And they need to have predictability. So if they'll listen to the common sense voices of Republicans in the General Assembly, and more importantly, the voice of the people crying out for relief, we might get something more commonsensical out of them. I don't know. That's a big open issue. But I will tell you, the one that I have the biggest issue in the state in terms of affordability, beyond just taxes, but affordability for the people of Colorado, is housing. Housing affordability is out of control, and we don't have enough units is why. And the reason we don't have enough housing units, specifically condominiums, which is where most people get the opportunity to put their foot on that first rung of home ownership with an affordable condominium, for sale, multiple family. The reason we don't have enough of that is the laws on the books invite lawsuits instead of insurance companies and developers and builders to build those homes. And so we need to fix that problem. We've got to reform the construction defects laws in Colorado. And the challenge is the Democrats don't want to do that. They want to pay lip service to the problem, but they don't want to actually resolve the construction defects litigation problem because the trial attorneys are their number one or number two contributor, depending on which election cycle it is. So they don't want to bite the hand that feeds them political money, but that's really the root issue. And I can get into the details of why that plays out the way it plays out, and you get it. You've got a legal mind, legal training. You understand why that happens the way it happens.
I don't, but no one's ever checked it. State Senator Paul Undine from El Paso County. Well, their answer isn't that. Their answer isn't to find a way to make it harder for people to stymie construction based on these lawsuits. Their answer was last year to try to offer that bill that hijacked local control over zoning issues and all that other stuff. Are they going to do that again?
Yeah, they're going to break it down. Last session was called Bill 213. And here in Colorado, the Constitution demands that we have a single subject in each bill. Well, that particular bill had about 9 subjects in it, all of which violated local control, all of which violated the principles of economics in meaningful ways. And so they're going to bring it back, and they're implicitly acknowledging it was not constitutional, the bill they brought last year. They're going to bring it back in multiple pieces. But again, the challenge is this. Think of it this way. We are about 200,000 affordable dwellings short of what we needed 10 years ago. Okay, so it's more than 200,000, but let's just say 200,000. If those homes are affordable, and it's just, I choke on saying that an affordable home is $500,000, $500,000 a piece, but that's what they're at these days. That's a $100 billion problem. Now, government solutions like Proposition 123, if fully implemented, would be about $1 billion in additional housing. Okay, so it's $100 billion problem, and the government says we're solving it because we're going to solve 1% of the problem. That there's a disconnect. That is no solution at all, and that's when I say the Democrats are going to claim victory, but not provide a solution. That's the scale of the problem. Well, here's the way they're going to do it. They're going to say, well, building a grandma flat out front, an alternative dwelling unit or an ADU, is going to be the solution. The problem is the capital's not going to flow into Colorado to build the volume of homes we need until we fix the construction defects problem. Changing the zoning at the state level, which is inappropriate. States should not be controlling zoning. That should remain, zoning and land use should always remain a local control issue. But changing that won't make the capital flow into the state, and therefore it won't solve the problem. So Democrats are offering up something and saying this is a solution that will not be a solution.
Yeah, it's the thing, though, that bugs me about it is this idea that folks out of Denver are going to be able to sit on some sort of a board. I don't care what it's comprised of. I don't care who's on it, that's going to make decisions about things. The worry that I have as a homeowner is I've made a decision to make certain sacrifices and efforts to put myself in a position to pick a community I want to live in where we have similar housing issues, single family homes, all this. And these folks want to come in and say, if your neighbor decides they want to scrape their house or turn it into a multifamily dwelling, suck it. That's too bad. I'm sorry you bought your house believing you were going to live in a different kind of a community. You can no longer do that. Well, what the hell? How is that America?
Well, it's not. And you, George, are a constitutional conservative. You honor and respect the Constitution. The founders saw this and they said, we're going to keep the federal government as small as possible. Defense of the borders, raise an army, launch a navy. That's it. That's all the federal government's going to do. Why did they do that? Because they knew that if you kept things in the states, that would be closer to the people and the people would have more influence over it. And even at the state level, they realized as they created this wonderful experiment in democracy, they realized if you push it even further local and you make the land use decision something that happens in the neighborhood, in the community, the people can go down to those meetings every Thursday night and say, yeah, I don't want that in my neighborhood. Or I do want this in my neighborhood. And those people will have influence over what their lives look like. The closer you keep the authority to the people, the more it is likely to represent what we want our neighborhood and our country to to look like.
There are some other bills out there. We're talking with State Senator Paul Lundeen. Some of them I've only seen really like cover pages on social media. But one of them is this one called, and these are the distractions from the big ticket ones. The big ticket ones are things like economy and taxes and the freedom that we've been talking about. But the ones they always throw out there are things like, it's a House bill, but maybe you've heard of it, 1039, concerning non-legal name changes for students in school, where schools are required to call a student, put it on the rosters, on their student ID, yearbooks, whatever they want to be called. And if they don't, it's discrimination. Have you heard of that bill, and are there others out there like it?
I'm not familiar with that. That doesn't surprise me. I think you will get a lot of bills of that nature. I think that the idea of giving the authority over these sorts of things to a student who is growing up, who is going through the challenges that we all went through as we went through adolescence, and a counselor or a teacher or somebody at the school, absent the parents' engagement, is just not correct. I mean, the student and the parents are part of a family. The family needs to advance their philosophy and their conclusions together and move those forward. When we start to take those sorts of things away from parents, we've made a tragic mistake. I'm inferring, based on what you're describing, that that's what this bill would do.
That's
and
it.
I, of course, I oppose that. But you're right. There will be any number of bills like that get brought that are designed to, quite frankly, break down a traditional pattern. I would argue the building block of America, which is the family.
The other one that I've seen, just the cover of a draft, and I don't know if it's dropped yet. It's another Senator Tom Sullivan special, along with some other folks, but it would seek to eliminate the ability for concealed carry permit holders to carry on school grounds, even in the course of being a school safety officer. And I know Laura Carno. That seems like a direct attack on FASTER and other organizations like that.
Right. What's happening? That's an acknowledgement of a very specific ideology that hates guns. All guns are bad. Anybody holding a gun is bad. They must all go away, stay away, be away. As opposed to the reality is, when someone who's a bad actor has a gun, the only possible response. Am I back yet?
Yeah, you must be using Sherry Pipe's phone. Yeah, we've got you.
No, you got me. I was saying, if you got me 5 by 5, I was saying that's an acknowledgement of an ideology that says guns bad, people with guns bad, universally, which is not correct, because when you have a bad actor with a gun, the only thing that can stand against that is a good actor with a gun, and preventing the protection of students by taking individuals who are responsible and capable and able from the school so that they cannot defend those students just makes those students defenseless in a tragic way. That particular bill idea is wrongheaded, and it's driven by ideology and not common sense.
Any other bills out there that folks may not be tracking that they ought to be aware of that are concerning to you?
Golly, the list of concerning bills will grow
and I know
grow
we're
and
early,
grow every day. Yeah, it's super early, but it will continue to grow. My biggest concern is this idea that the Democrats are going to bring non-solutions and partial solutions to the biggest issues we face in Colorado, to the relief that the Coloradans are crying out for, and claim it for political purposes as a victory when it really makes the problem worse or doesn't help the problem at all. And the biggest issues right now are the affordability of life for Coloradans and the ability of the small businesses in Colorado to survive. Because we don't have small businesses that are surviving and thriving, our economy starts to fall apart. I mean, we were 4th in the nation a few years ago. We've fallen to 11th in terms of business friendly nature. We've got a D+ rating among the states as an affordable place to live. That's a one tick away from an F, a failure. And so I'm going to call a D+ the same thing as a failure. We've got to make life more affordable for the people of Colorado, and putting more government regulations on the people and more government regulations on the businesses of Colorado, and not giving the tax relief that people are calling out for is a failure.
How about the again, we're going to shift gears a little bit here. You are a grassroots dude. You always have been, as long as I've known you in politics. Can I ask you about what is taking place at the state and county party level? Two things I was hoping to get your thoughts on. One is this movement towards allowing the party at the county or state level to weigh in on primaries on behalf of candidates. And two, there's a decision, and we have Dave on all the time on the show, to have Dave Williams, the state party chair, remain a state party chair while he is running for this seemingly hotly contested CD5 race down where you live. Any thoughts on those?
Yeah. Well, the party is supposed to be an honest broker to make sure that the conversation among conservatives, constitutional conservatives like you and I, is held in an open and honest way, so that that we can find the candidates that we want to represent us, that we want to stand as standard bearers for the patriotic and constitutional values we hold. So that's the job of the party, both at the state level and at the county level. When you have a judge, who is also a candidate, when you have someone who's supposed to be the honest broker, keeping things square, participating in a race, it's by in nature, out of balance. It's, many people would say it's unethical, immoral. I will just say it's broken. It just doesn't work properly that level. So I don't think you can do that. The reality is the party should be helping us get the best candidates there, not influencing the races on behalf of one candidate or another. I think the idea that, and the state party, it's my understanding that they required the presidential aspirants to pay I think the fee was a $40,000 ballot access fee to be on the ballot in Colorado. And then they turn around and say, oh, now we're going to run an effort to preemptively endorse one of the candidates that we're now extracting money from. That just seems immoral and unethical on its face.
Well, you're in CD5, and it's no surprise to you that your name has been thrown around as a potential contender for that open seat because of Doug Lamborn's retirement. We've had on Dave, we've had on Jeff Crank, we've had on Bob Gardner, all declared candidates. Rose says she's not going to do it. Rose Puglisi, the assistant minority leader. Have you given this thing thought? Do you know where you are in the process?
Yeah, I've given it thought. I've not made a final decision. I'm reserving the right to, participate. But at this point, I think we've got a lot of really important business to take care of at the state level. I have been blessed by my caucus to have a leadership role in that. I've been blessed by the people of El Paso County that they send me to the state Senate because they believe in me and they want me to do good work. Well, I'm going to focus on doing the good work I've been sent to do.
That's an important one too, because you have a lot of good Republican leaders in the legislature. And right now, right as this thing becomes vacant, you guys are focused on winning a whole bunch of important battles. And then someone goes, by the way, here's an open congressional seat. The timing couldn't be more challenging if you're in the legislature.
That's absolutely correct. And I'm just doing, I think it's a burden of leadership to keep my eye on the prize. We are trying to do important work at the state Senate, and I'm staying focused on that.
Yeah, listen, Paul Lundeen, state senator, superstar. What's your title now? Is it Commodore in the Senate? What did they call you?
Knucklehead. Knucklehead is what most people call me.
Is that it? That's given to you by the caucus, I presume, as well as the people across the aisle.
No.
Listen, we're going to have you back on as soon as you make a decision one way or the other, but I'd like to have you, but you've always been good about being a resource for us about the things going on during this 120 days of utter chaos. Well, yeah. I know that you guys play defense far more than you do offense, but I just appreciate the conversation.
Yeah, I tell you what, here's one place where we played offense. And I got a shout out from the governor yesterday in his state of the state address. One way we played offense is, I have said and argued for years that public education is something that we absolutely should hold as a priority of state government. We'll spend all sources about $15 billion trying to educate 900,000 students, and we don't do a great job of it, so we need better leadership. But we need to do that and fund that properly, because the Constitution requires a certain funding level before we start doing all sorts of other Democrat political pet projects. And last year I got written into law a mechanism that will make sure we spend money on public education before we create more silly Democrat pet projects. You got to prioritize things. And when we make education first, then we diminish all of the other crazy Democrat projects because there's not as much money lying around for them to grab. What they've done for years is they've created their silly political pet projects. They've grown the Colorado Energy Office 30% a year for years and years and years. And then, they've done it all on the backs of the students, in my opinion. And then they say, well, what do we have left? Well, let's give that to public education. I've been able to flip that. Let's fund education first. And that will slow down the growth of all these crazy Democrat pet projects we've been suffering under for years.
Well, that's fantastic stuff. I hope we get more success stories like that throughout this session, but it's still Colorado. State Senator Paul Lundeen, Commodore of the State Senate. Man, good luck out there, and please let us know what decisions you make.
Keep the faith. To you and your listeners, George, keep the faith. The Constitution is strong. The people are smart. We're going to get this state back.
Amen to that. Hey, thanks for calling. Listen, we're going to cut away for a break. We went long with State Senator Paul Lundeen, but honestly, when you get access to folks from the legislature in the middle of this, well, actually at the front end of this slog, this fight, I just want to pick their brains and know what's coming and what are the things that are out there. And it's always good to hear from a constitutional conservative like Paul. And we had Bob Gardner on yesterday. I know those guys are talking about running for another race, but they do such good work in the legislature. I just want to get the benefit of their expertise for you and frankly for me as well. Listen, our phone number 303-696-1971 is the number. What are you hearing there? What is your great expectation for this legislature? We're going to talk about the State of the State address by Governor Polis when we come back, and we'll get to your phone calls, many of your texts as well. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. My thanks to State Senator Paul Lundeen Commodore of the state Senate in a leadership role out there fighting the good fight on behalf of conservatives and Republicans everywhere. Yesterday, there was the obligatory and annual State of the State address. I want to get into that with you. But before I do that, I got to tell you about, because I meant to do this in the last segment, but I'm not that bright. I want to tell you about a guy who goes to court, much like Paul goes to the legislature for 120 days in a row to fight on our behalf. A guy named Dan Kaplis and his partner, Barbara Wahid, go into courtrooms every single day and fight a good fight on behalf of victims. Here's the thing. They don't care what your political affiliation is. They don't care what your religious affiliation is. They don't care about any real demographic. In fact, the only qualifier to earn the best personal injury law firm in the metro area, if not the state, is you just have to have a righteous case. That's it. It sounds like it's a low bar, but you and I both know that there are a ton of attorneys out there chasing down every paper cut as a way to try to fill their coffers. That's not Dan, never been Dan. I only know that because I worked for Dan for a few years and learned to try civil cases under him and his partner, Dan, at the time. In fact, Bobber and I did Bobber's very first jury trial. But if you're a person who's been wronged and hurt by someone else, legitimately hurt, not like, oh, I have phantom whiplash syndrome, which is a reference to an old Green and Fazio skit from Saturday Night Live with Phil Hartman. But I mean, legitimately hurt, like your life has been changed for the worse by a company, a trucking company, a driver, someone else, a business. It doesn't matter who did it. But if they did it, negligence, recklessness, of all the places that you have that you can go to, there's really only one that has the track record that Dan has. And there's really only one that says the gatekeeper to us representing you is have a righteous case, period, end of story. You don't have to have money. You don't fund your own case. They take care of all that. All they ask is, can they feel good about representing you and help you get to a place you deserve to be? Give them a call, 303-770-5551, 303-770-5551. You can also learn a lot more about Dan and the firm at dankapleslaw.com. That's C-A-P-L-I-S, dankapleslaw.com. We have some sound. There were some interesting things in this State of the State, as there always are. There are things where the governor goes out of his way to reach out olive branch-wise, and I think it's smart and appropriate for him to do that by throwing credit to different people, even Republicans, for things they've done. The governor, of course, now in a place where he knows these next couple years are going to be a big deal as he gets himself into a position to leave office and then potentially become a viable national candidate for perhaps 2028. So this is stuff that's an attempt to also massage and manicure his image as much as it is to set forth a course for the legislature and state government over the next now 118 days, this one included. So there were some interesting things in it, and I found about 7 things in here that I had highlighted that were noteworthy. Now, the funny behind the scenes aspect of that whole thing is I sent them to Billy using an email system that refuses to accept my emails. And that's, of course, the Salem system. So when I reached out to Billy to say, hey, did we get these 7 clips? That's my fault, because when you can't just send something to someone and say, please find all this in the blink of an eye, and that's what it ended up being. So here's what
the email system. The email system hates me too. I take it personally.
Yeah.
We talked about this.
This is not the first time this has happened. This is not, I mean, this happens at least weekly, sometimes more, where I'm like, hey, did you get that email? And you're like, what email?
Yeah. I don't know what. Again, I respect our IT department because otherwise they'll turn off my email. And but
they have.
Yes, the firewall is serious here at Salem, and it takes forever sometimes for things to make it all the way through the firewall and to get through everything. They oftentimes think that your stuff is spam. And so I don't know what that says about you and where you rank in the hierarchy, how they've classified you.
It's foreshadowing.
Yeah,
it's foreshadowing.
Yeah. So the funny thing is there are times in which you are sitting not more than 15 feet away from me, and it could take a day for the email to go from there into my inbox. And I don't know why. And the other thing is because as you and I know, we all have other jobs, and I work for another media company. And basically, anything short of really bad snuff porn can get through the email system. And again, I'm not sure why. I don't know what the difference is between the two, but one company is like, hey, whatever you're doing. Yes, exactly. I don't understand. So yeah, that was it. It took a little bit of time. I do have the two ones. I've got the one on the taxes and the one on the public safety. That's all I got. All right. I'm going to go sit in my corner.
That's okay. We'll get to those. I want to read some of these parts though, because this state of the state in some ways is a bit bonkers. There's some real hypocrisy in there, and we'll talk about that. But if you're looking for an indication that Boulder and Denver control the direction of the entire state of Colorado, this snippet that I'll read to you will give you some indication. Democrats hate people that own and drive cars. Hate them. They're just desperately trying to figure out a way to not signal it too much with their bills and the things that they talk about, because they know that the vast majority of voters have and rely upon cars. They hate that. They would love to force everybody into a walkable city, because in a walkable city, you're dependent upon government-provided transportation like trains and buses and things like that. And here's the language from this, the state of the state, that makes me think this. I'm going to read you. These are verbatim Governor Polis's words from yesterday. What it comes down to is creating a Colorado where people from all backgrounds can live in homes they can afford near accessible and reliable transportation options. Listen to these transportation options. Raise your hand when you hear the word automobile. Hang on. These reliable transportation options: buses, bikes, and walkable neighborhoods. Folks, that's it, man. They want to Manhattanize the entire state of Colorado and force people into these urban centers, because they know they dominate the urban centers, because government is relied upon to provide just about everything. And let's be honest, the automobile is the modern horse. This is the tool that you and I can use to travel wherever we want, whenever we want. They don't like that. And they're going to blame it on greenhouse gases. They're going to blame it on traffic and all these other things. But at the end of the day, a controllable people are a people that are jammed into a very tight space. That's what they would like. So here's more. Here's more of the description. This is I feel like if I could play John Lennon's Imagine, this is where I would play it. Because it begins with, imagine leaving your home and heading to the train stop or bus station just a few blocks away. Maybe you walk or ride your bike. From there, you ride to work in the morning in style. And because the schedule's reliable, by the way, because the schedule's reliable, like the trains and buses, like the RTD line. I mean, because the schedule's reliable, you know exactly what time you'll catch the train or bus to come home later that day. You don't have to worry about whether you have enough gas or if the roads will be icy. And if you do choose to drive a car, there's less traffic. On the weekends, you use that same transit stop to head downtown. Blah, blah. He made some joke about playing for the Rockies, or for dinner with your friends. And because you live in a home you can afford and are saving money on gas and car repairs, you can put your money toward other priorities. What a wonderful day in Mr. Rogers' neighborhood, and soon more neighborhoods across our state. And if you didn't verp, what's wrong with you? Because I did. I verped just reading that last night as it came through. This is the utopian view of the Democrat Party. This is the left's dream. We have 99% of Colorado protected open space, not for ranchers, not for people with animals unless you're raising wolves, but for people to go on hikes and biking through. You can't use it for oil and gas development. You can't harvest any of the natural resources that we have. That's not what the outdoors are for. And we're all jammed into Denver. Or if you're super rich and elite, you're jammed into Boulder. And everyone else just has to suck it. That's the goal that he has laid out here with the state of the state. But wait, there's more. I can't read to you all of the different crazy examples, but he gives some of these descriptions as justification. The distance the average Coloradan drives per year has increased by more than 20% over the past 40 years. And recent data shows that commuters in Denver were stuck in traffic for an average of 54 hours, more than an entire work week. Now, is that the justification for expanding our roads? No. It's in order to build more housing near reliable transit. That's right. Transit doesn't include cars. It's bikes and walking trails and buses and trains and all that wonderful stuff. And he continues to pile on with this. And time isn't the only thing getting wasted. Coloradans are spending too much money on gas to the tune of roughly $1,800 per year per driver. Stop. Full stop. Do you remember that this is the governor that signed into law a gas fee on every gallon of gas purchased by every hardworking Coloradan, and then suspended the imposition of that fee in order to get through the last re-election? That's the guy saying we're spending too much on gas. What in the world is going? These people must think we're morons. And frankly, the way we vote, they might be right. Stick around. There's more of this to go through. We got plenty more to go through on this State of the State. Folks, the Colorado you live in right now is not the one they envisioned for the future. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Not a lot of time to finish up. We're going to do it in the 9 o'clock. We've got some sound. We've got some more stuff here. You did not pay attention to Governor Polis's State of the State, and you're to be congratulated for that, because it was a little bit painful. The guy is deliberately corny, and it pays off for him, but holy smokes, man. Some of the stuff that they dream of for Colorado that they consider moonshot stuff, we'll talk about that in the 9. Let me tell you about Ultra Botanica. That's the group out there that has put together this patented curcumin-based, all-natural supplement that's an antioxidant, anti-inflammatory, all health things that you can think of. I've taken it, Billy's taken it, and not once or twice or 3 days, but for an extended period of time. I've seen the difference it's made in alleviating some of the inflammation and pain around my heels, in particular when I run. And that's probably a technique problem as much as anything, but you can enjoy the benefits of this too. First, go to getultranow.com. Ask all the hard questions afterwards. Like, look up the stuff they say independent of that website to get your own proof. But getultranow.com. Then go to your natural grocers. Ask the Vitamin Cottage manager for your 3-day free supply. Get another one for a loved one. Check it out. And then you're going to be hooked. I'm telling you, that's what's going to happen. It's getultranow.com. Go to your natural grocers. Now, listen, Billy, how much time do we have? Music in 5 seconds. Listen, I want to talk to you. I'll tease you, prime the pump, if you will. In the 9 o'clock hour, we'll continue with the State of the State and take your phone calls at 303-696-1971 about what's going on with Colorado. Is this the right direction? It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS. George Brauchler back with you here, 710 KNUS. Final hour of the final show of this second full week of January before we head into an extremely chilly single digits weekend. That includes Monday. I mean, they're talking at 1.4 degrees here. Now, I don't believe anything the weather people say because it's like rolling bones or something like that. I feel like what we should do, and Billy, maybe this is a side hustle, is we create a magic 8-ball that has weather on it instead of like, try again later. You shake it and it just tells you what the weather is. And then we run a side-by-side comparison of the magic 8-ball weather predictor next to the actual weather people here in Colorado and just see who's right more often. I feel like I already know the answer. Listen, before we get back into Jared Polis's State of the State address, it's a doozy, folks. They want to remake Colorado. They hate people that don't live in the city. If they don't live in a city or a congested area, they want to do just about everything possible to discourage you from that outcome, including, by the way, releasing gray wolves into those really cute and adorable gray wolves into rancher territory right there. Our number 303-696-1971. If you weren't scared at all about the potential future for Colorado based on Jared Polis's State of the State, just look at some of the bills the General Assembly is going to try to run across his desk. We talked about a couple of them with Sherry Pike from Complete Colorado, page 2, and State Senator Paul Lundeen, Commodore of the Senate. And those include things like the name change thing. And I don't want to go through the entire thing, but gist of it is this: without parental input, knowledge, consent, nothing, the school is going to be bound, if this law passes, it's HB 24-1039, would be bound to call a child by any name that child says And by the way, it does not appear by the terms of this legislation that that's limited in terms of how many times a child can decide, not whether they want to be called Bobby or Susie or whatever, but any name of any kind. And that's how it has to show up in the yearbook. That's how it has to show up on their school ID and on rosters and all that. Can you imagine jerseys that people wear in sports will have to wear the name? I mean, there was a guy, folks, I'm so sorry to get off on this sidetrack. I didn't mean to. There was a guy out there in Jefferson County who everybody knew and who I think I even prosecuted once, who changed his name to Mephistopheles Fetus Grubber. At least he did the legal name change, right? So you know that it took some effort. There's some permanence there. This law would allow children like me, and I would have in high school, to show up on an unending basis and announce, I'd like to be called Mephistopheles Fetus Grubber, or I want to be called JC, or I'd like to be referred to as Satan, or I want to have the principal's name. I want to be, there's no limitation to what someone can do under this ridiculous, misguided, I hate parental input law. So if you're not concerned at all by the things we're going to go through with the state of the state, just remember there's a General Assembly there to really make you wake up in a cold sweat in the middle of the night. Something that won't make you wake up in the middle of the night in a cold sweat is the decision to go with Mitch Floria with the Art of Granite when you're looking to upgrade the countertops in your house, whether it's the bathroom, the laundry room, kitchen is the big one, right? Maybe a finished basement. And I've thought about that too, man, the finished basement thing. It's just, the radio needs to pay about 3 times as much if I'm going to go down and do a serious job on that basement. But if and when I get there, one of the things I'm going to do is get the wholesale pricing that Mitch Floria offers at the Art of Granite. The website is the place to go to start, the Art of Granite, all one word.com. But, you know, Mitch is a great businessman, but he's also a great fan of Salem and 710 KNUS and the George Show. So if you tell him, I'm a listener, this guy does more than the wholesale prices. He'll throw in the bathroom countertop, the entire bathroom countertop with the kitchen countertop package. Boom, done. Oh, by the way, if you're only doing one room, that's okay. He'll throw in the sink for free with the countertop package. The craftsmanship, the workmanship, undeniable. Long-term employees, not subcontractors. You really need to get down to his showroom at about Colfax-ish and 6th, out there in Jeffco on the road towards the courthouse. That's how I know it. Easy to get to. The stuff you see, you're blown away by. And here's the other kicker to this thing. You get a chance to meet Mitch Floria. Mitch is a great and compelling dude. We'll have him back in the studio very, very soon. His number, and he gives you his number, 303-386-5919, 303-386-5919. That's theartofgranite.com. Now, in this state of the state, I already went through the fact that the governor's dream is for everybody to live in a city and to have the ability to hop on a train or a bus or take a bike and be able to get to wherever they want to go. And it's so predictable because the schedule is known and it's adhered to, just like everything else the government does. Here's another part. They love trains, man. These lefties love them some trains. And the reason they love them some trains is trains control people's movements, right? Like trains have to be on a track. It's on a schedule. If you've ever been to Europe, you know that whatever quote unquote privatized companies they have are limited in what they can do and how they can do it. There's significant government intervention and regulation of all of that stuff. And that's what they'd like to visit in Colorado. So the moonshot that the governor describes in this state of the state is this. I'm going to read this. For too long, passenger rail has been another, quote, moonshot, out of reach for too many people in our state. Coloradans love the idea, but many people believe it's not something they'll see in our lifetimes. Yes, it's big, and yes, it's bold, and I'm here to tell you it's within reach. And then he quotes Agatha Christie, a woman born in 1890, generations before the interstate travel system that we have now. To travel by train is to see nature and human beings. In fact, to see life. You know, my guess is when you've gone to Yellowstone or to Rocky Mountain National Park, you ain't done it by train. So what she's talking about is the past. Trains were the vehicle and the lifeline to development for America, east and west, and ultimately north and south across the country. She was born in 1890. Okay. That's not how we do it now. We drive on roads. And the reason we drive on roads is multiple layered. But at the end of the day, it's about freedom. I get up in the middle of the night and I decide, you know what, I want to go drive to the King Soopers that's open till 11 o'clock at night because I forgot to pick up something for breakfast. I hop in the car and I go drive there. If you're stuck with buses and trains, suck it, brother. You're just going to have to wait because the very predictable and so totally reliable government-imposed schedule means you got to travel when they tell you you can travel. Trains and buses are an important part. Don't get me wrong. They are an important part of the total package. But when you listen to the governor talk, he gives lip service to cars and bemoans the fact that that gas is so expensive after having signed into law the latest and greatest gas fee that we all pay at the pump every single time you squeeze that lever. That's where we're going. This is what he's saying. After years of waiting, the pieces are falling into place. The federal government has approved more than $66 billion with a B to create a world-class rail system for, not for Colorado, for the country. Okay. This is, folks, I'm just telling you, they envision a Colorado where we're all trapped in the cities in which they live. And this is what's crazy about it. Polis doesn't even live in the city. Dude doesn't live in the governor's mansion, right? Guy owns property out in Southern California. He owns a ranch up in Weld County, and that's where he fled to during the COVID. He wasn't a city dweller. Isn't it interesting that the people that have all the means in the world are the ones that are trying to push everybody into the cities while they own all the property outside the city? It's very, very interesting. But wait, there's more. Public safety. Now, if you'll recall, through the first 3 or 4 State of the States, I may have that wrong, the governor never mentioned public safety beyond maybe mentioning the words public safety. But that's it, because it wasn't a thing. And then, of course, we had the crime tsunami, ushered in not by the COVID, but by the lax policies and the hug-a-thug procedures and laws that the Dems have put into place under the Gold Dome. Well, now public safety is a legit thing. And so he starts, of course, by ingratiating himself towards the men and women of law enforcement and the military. And I appreciate that. I mean, I don't think it's sincere, but I appreciate that he does it. But then he says a couple different things. We all deserve to be safe. I agree, which is why our goal is to make Colorado one of the 10 safest cities in the nation by a year after I'm out of office. Now, he doesn't say it like that. He says by 2027. And I'll be supporting legislation to further that goal and will be very skeptical of legislation that would make us less safe. Not I will oppose. I'll be very skeptical. Not I won't sign. I'll be very skeptical. First off, it was 2+ years ago that he first said, hey, my goal is to make us one of the top 10 safest states. We used to be one of the top 10 safest states. At least that's how it felt when I grew up here in Lakewood, Colorado. What's changed? Is it us? Have we changed? I'm not sure that's it. I think there's some of that, especially when we have the demographic shift that we've had, and we've invited all of these other ne'er-do-wells in here through our lax drug policies, including the legalization of recreational marijuana. But at the end of the day, folks, that's his stated goal. It's been repeated now 2 or 3 times. But if you look at the laws that get passed, they are bonkers towards that end. So here's a couple things. He praises both Democrat and Republican senators who, and this is a quote, we took important steps to crack down on auto theft. Now, let's recognize that Colorado has been number 1 in America for per capita for auto theft for years now, under the leadership of Governor Polis and the Dems who control the Gold Dome. We have been number 1. The changes that he's talking about, are you talking about mandatory jail and arrest? No. Mandatory prison for conviction, even if it's repeated. No, none of that stuff. You can still steal a car and be home for dinner, so you can charge up and then go out and steal some more cars. And of course, if you follow A.G. Weiser's sage advice, When someone's stolen 3 or 4 cars in about a 4-month period, then you consider locking them up. That's the people in charge. So we took important steps to crack down on auto theft. They took baby steps. Important, yes, but important baby steps. So what they did was to take away the value of the vehicle as some sort of a qualification for the felonization of these. And there was significant hand-wringing and tearing of clothes by the lefties in the legislature over this. Like, we can't treat car thieves as felons. They're just looking for a warm place to stay, defecate, and do drugs. That, of course, is not true. Car thieves notoriously steal cars in order to go commit other felonies, a number of them violent felonies. But that's an aside. So he takes great credit for that after, by the way, having signed in a series of laws that further weaken the criminal justice system. Now, he says here, this is another quote, sadly, in the last few months, there's been a dramatic increase in horrific acts of hate across the world, including here at home, between October the 7th and January the 7th. And remember, October the 7th is significant because it's when the evil Hamas Palestinians invaded Israel and raped women and killed parents in front of their children and beheaded babies and all that stuff that makes you want to negotiate peace with them. That's when that happened, was October the 7th and January the 7th. The Anti-Defamation League recorded a 360% increase in anti-Semitic incidents nationwide. The rise in anti-Semitism, Islamophobia, I don't know why the hell you would throw Islamophobia. And has there been a spike in Islamophobia? I mean, have you seen roving gangs of Jews wandering around college campuses saying, we're going to eliminate you? And hate in all forms is unacceptable in Colorado. It may be unacceptable, but you don't have to say boo about it unless you're in a state of the state. You'll recall that Hamas loving and celebrating Timmy Hernandez, that guy went out and danced around during the hours in which babies were being beheaded and women were being raped over in Israel. And the governor said nothing about Tim Hernandez, certainly not by name. A.G. Weiser, also a fellow Jew, said nothing about it. So while we'll take the state of the state as an opportunity to denounce anti-Semitism, we feel obligated to throw in Islamophobia, which is fake. 100% fake here in the state of Colorado. Come on, man. That issue, to the extent that it exists, and I'm not saying it doesn't exist, we haven't seen an increase in Islamophobia. It has been at whatever level it has been at. But anti-Semitism, oh, brother, come on. Come on. Undeniable. There are 2 former presidents of elite universities who can tell you that the anti-Semitism thing, oh, yeah, it's a real thing. Turns out when you chant from the river to the sea, and we saw a whole bunch of people at the General Assembly and the Peanut Gallery doing that exact thing. Where's the decrying that? Where's Governor Polis or A.G. Weiser or SOS, Secretary of State Jenna Griswold, all professed Jews? Where are they to denounce that garbage and to say, you say from the river to the sea, Palestine will be free. And what we hear is the elimination of Jews and Israel. We decry that, and it's got to end. Where's that kind of leadership, that kind of guts? I'm sorry. We can't afford that in a party that refuses to hold itself accountable for the hate that it inspires and permits, frankly. But anyway, that's another part from the governor. Here's something else regarding public safety. And this is the one that it's outrageous. In keeping with our commitment to public safety, Colorado is leading the nation in our efforts to prevent gun violence. Whether it's strengthening our red flag law, stop. Do you know how we strengthened our red flag law? We permitted the art teacher that hated you in high school to be able to dime you out to the courts as someone who shouldn't have firearms. Yeah, that's right. That's strengthening it. We've allowed Phil Weiser to weigh in, a guy who never, ever, never, never receives a case. Once it happens, it has to be investigated and handed to him on a silver platter first. This dude's not a first responder. He's not a 10th responder. But now he can weigh in based on his many, many years of non-experience and determine that you should not have your Second Amendment rights also. That's the strengthening of our red flag law. But I continue. Establishing waiting period. Yep. You know what? Every mass shooting we've had would have been prevented by what? No, that's not true. Not a single one would have. Not a single one that I can name. Not Columbine, not STEM, not Aurora, not Mountain Vista, which was a near mass shooting, not Boulder, not Planned Parenthood down south. In fact, you would struggle to find how a waiting period that Colorado has imposed would have prevented a single mass shooting crime of any kind, or really most of the crimes that we find. Most of the gun violence against other people that we find is not the product of rushing to the gun store, buying a handgun, and then going out and committing a crime. It's fake. Nonetheless, establishing waiting periods, requiring safe storage of firearms in homes where kids are present. Also fake. Totally fake. I don't know anybody that owns firearms that, one, doesn't already safely store them, but two, doesn't store them now if they hadn't because the government said to. This is an after the fact law. This is a law designed to punish you after something bad happens. But again, or banning ghost guns. We are a model for the nation in practical, common sense limitations on your solutions to the problem of gun violence while protecting our cherished Second Amendment rights. But hang on. To build on this work, we're proposing additional investments to prevent convicted felons from illegally purchasing firearms. Folks, where's Kyle Clark on this? Where's Channel 7 or Channel 4 on this? This governor still has a wet signature on a law that permits tens of thousands of convicted felons and Coloradans to possess firearms with the help and the support of the Attorney General. What are you talking about? Each year, thousands of people who are prohibited from purchasing a firearm try to do so illegally. As a state, we made that legal. As a state, we need to stand firm and crack down on illegal firearm activity. We're working with U.S. Attorney Cole Finnegan, Attorney General Phil Weiser, and district attorneys to get it done while supporting our rural DA offices. Utter bull. If I had the button that Stefan had, I might have used it right there. Utter garbage. These clowns legalized the possession of firearms by drug dealers, convicted drug dealers, by convicted car thieves, and tens of thousands of other convicted felons. And now they're saying we're going to invest $600,000 of our taxpayer dollars to fund the Attorney General's office, to provide prosecutors to Cole Finnegan at the U.S. Attorney's office to help them enforce their laws, which weirdly were just like our laws before Weiser and Polis advocated changing them. Damn, man. Elections have consequences, but who knew it was this? There's more to this. We'll talk about it. We've got some sound when we come back. Hey, listen, before I cut away, I want to tell you about Brent and Joyce Tolliver, superstars. I love these people. They've been in my house. They have gone through just about every room in my house that has a cabinet, because what they do with roll them out shelves is to find a way to make your house efficient, more usable, and frankly, a happier place to be. Now, they have a website where you can check out the videos. And that's what I do, is I would go check out the videos because they show their long-term employees, that not subcontractors, and that matters. I'm not dinging subcontractors. What I am telling you is that when you have long-term employees, there's a different level of accountability. These aren't people who come and go. These are people who are committed to the business. And so for that purpose, you get roll them out shelves. Now, roll them out is also a mother-son operation. So you know that you're getting small business kind of focus on customer service, not some big box store thing. I would give these folks a call today for the free in-home estimate, 303-475-9601, 303-475-9601. That's rollemoutshelves.com. When we come back, your text, which, yes, I've neglected, I apologize. Your calls at 303-696-1971. It's George Brauchler, 710 KNUS.
recognize the men and women in law enforcement and the members of the military that are here with us today. If they can rise, we can express our gratitude for their service. Thank you for your work. We all deserve to be safe, which is why our goal is to make Colorado one of the 10 safest states by 2027. And I'll be supporting legislation to further that goal, and we'll be very skeptical of any legislation that would make Colorado less safe.
Yeah, the opposite of support is not skepticism. The opposite of support is oppose, and yet he won't oppose it. Folks, that's Jared Polis. My name's George Brauchler. This is The George Show. Holding the governor accountable in a way that apparently we just can't get anywhere else, especially on this topic. Remember that to keep Colorado safe, that's the umbrella. The governor wants to take $600,000 and give it to Phil Weiser to hire prosecutors, not for him to use to enforce Colorado law, because they broke Colorado law. It's to give them to the U.S. attorney. Now, you'll recall also, we have laws that prevent law enforcement from communicating with ICE, because it's not local business to enforce federal law. Well, guess what? All of a sudden, it's local business to enforce federal law when it comes to guns, especially after we trashed our own gun laws. Somebody, for the love of God, please ask Phil Weiser or Jared Polis to explain how this isn't hypocrisy and a violation of everything that they've screamed at the top of their lungs about immigration for the last 5 years. Bonkers. Let's go to the phone lines. Nick, you're on 710 KNUS. Nick, what do you think?
Everything you said, I couldn't agree with more, but here's the problem. The Democrats in this state have the loudest megaphone, and our message is simply not getting out to the average citizen. And most people are not policy wonks like you, because you're in that business. You're in the information business. So you can spend a lot of time during the day, apart from your legal work, to investigate all this. But until common sense voices find their own voice and get the message out, we're going nowhere. Everything you said is completely true, but the average citizen doesn't hear that. They don't really get the full information. And
But Nick, think about what you're saying. And again, we get in this double-edged sword here thing, and that is we want to undervalue the knowledge and intelligence of voters when they vote against us. And we want to say when they vote the way we like that, yep, that's the vote of the will of the vote, like HH. I think it's more complicated than that. I do agree with you, by the way, that the Democrats dominate media. They dominate social media.
Yes,
They're
they
able
do.
to communicate their message more easily than we can. And that there are a lot of low information voters. But I'm just worried about saying the bad outcomes that we disagree with are the product of no information. It could be that Colorado has changed demographically to the point where people just don't agree with us.
That is true. However, these people have not been exposed to the true story. So how do we expose them to the big picture? We have to get the statistics out. I think one of the fastest ways you can get your message across, don't get sidelined with philosophy and all that other stuff, because unless you've had a decent education and you can think for yourself, all that stuff kind of goes in one ear and out the other. You have to present it with the statistics. Back in 2005, here were the statistics on murder and every other level of crime. Here's what's happened in the interim years, and they can connect the dots on their own, or at least give them that chance. We have to get the statistics out. Now, one of the best things that ever happened is when Elon Musk bought Twitter, or whatever it's called now, X or Y or whatever it is called. At least it was exposed how one-sided the message is in not only locally but nationally. People are not getting the full story.
Yeah, I agree that definitely X has changed under Elon Musk. I'm not sure it's all positive. At least that's how the advertisers see it. But I do think it is a different platform, and that these social media companies have the ability to algorithm the message they like best at the expense of the ones they don't like the best. Sometimes that's good. Sometimes that's bad. Like the good stuff is I'm not interested in seeing a whole bunch of things on I hate Jews on social media or death to Jews or that kind of stuff. But having said that, I do want us to have more open communication. I just don't know that that means that we win. Nick, thank you for that phone call, man. 303-696-1971. Nick's line is open. Let's do two. I feel obligated by a sense of fairness to praise Governor Polis when he says things, whether he does them or not, I don't know. But when he says things with which I agree from a principle, policy, ideology standpoint. And he did that yesterday when it comes to taxes. Billy, do you have that clip?
Thanks to Colorado's amazing success, we're well on our way towards another record year of Tabor surpluses projected to be between 1.6 and 1.8 billion with a B dollars. A healthy Tabor surplus is, of course, the sign of a strong economy, but also a signal that the tax rate is simply too high.
Not a single Democrat hand is clapping, by the way.
Tax relief is the best mechanism to relieve cost of living pressure and spur economic growth for everyone in our state. As demonstrated by our healthy surplus in Colorado, taxes are simply too high. Income taxes, property taxes, and the state sales tax. We ignore that signal at our own peril. And I challenge Democrats and Republicans to work together to improve our economic growth and success by not taking taxes that we can't keep anyway, and instead working on a bold and balanced and progressive package, including cutting the income tax rate.
Dang. That was Jared Polis. Yes, you heard it right, folks. Cutting the income tax rate. Now, he threw in the word progressive because he's got to make a little bit of love to the far lefties out there on his team. But did you hear that muted applause? That's because there are only 19 Republicans in the House and a near super minority in the Senate. Those were all of their hands clapping because the Dems freaked out. One, he praised Tabor. He actually said Tabor. He didn't call it the Colorado Koshback. He actually used the word Tabor repeatedly. You can't say it. It's like Voldemort for the Dems. Not only did he say it, he praised it and then said, it's a signal. Our taxes are too high. We should cut income taxes. OMG, man. Can you imagine the Dems? Scott Wasserman from the Bell Policy Center, the Sinestro to Michael Field's Green Lantern from Advanced Colorado. That dude must have just been like, it's time for me to leave the state. I can't do it. That's the right answer. Now, careful, though. Careful. We do want to cut the income tax rate. But you know what these freak shows are going to do on the left? They're going to try to cut it in a way that creates a progressive, not a flat, a progressive tax rate, where they're going to say, well, we'll cut taxes for everyone. We'll cut 1 penny for those people who make more than $50,000 a year, but we're going to cut jillions for the folks that actually don't pay the taxes in the same quantities to begin with. Be aware of that coming. Be aware of that. We got to keep the flat tax in Colorado. Hell, we'd love to have a flat tax nationally, and we need to reduce it. That part I agree with. The other thing I agree with is that if you're in the market to buy or sell a home, the only number you care about is this one, 833-301-SOLD. That's Gay Ribble and the Empower Home team of Keller Williams number 833-301-SOLD. Why sold? Because that's what they do. More than every other group out there, quicker than every other group out there, and for for more money in your pocket than the other groups that are out there. These aren't people who decided to get into real estate later on in life because they wanted to put a couple extra bucks in their pocket. No. These are people who have made a career of putting families in the right home and getting them the right price for their home and the one they're moving into. Gay Ribble can be found, her whole team, at sellwithcertaintycolorado.com. Sellwithcertainty weekday-colorado.com. Cool news is we're going to be in studio with Gay next week, and we'll have a conversation about all the stuff you'd want to know about real estate. I just pick her brain all the time. We don't script anything. It's just me doing a free-for-all with Gay about all sorts of things, from adoption to real estate to homes, best place to buy a house. She even gave me some advice off air about maybe looking at something for my son up in Fort Collins if he's going to stay in that area after college. I mean, she just knows stuff. Why not get the benefit of it? That's sellwithcertaintycolorado.com. Listen, let's do this. Let's cut away for a break. When we come back, there are a billion texts. I have not gotten to them yet. That's unfair. And I want to try to get through many of these things as best I can before we punch out. It's George Brauchler on The George Show, 710 KNUS. Oh, Billy has come through, folks. If you were a loyal listener and you listened to the 6 o'clock, we had a conversation about this very song from Jefferson Airplane. That is an awesome beginning. I'm now going to listen to that on my way to DU Law School to teach after the radio show this morning. That dude's voice, man. That's a great, great song. We should have sing-along Fridays, Billy, where we just pick a song. You, me, maybe some callers, and we just jam to a couple verses of something. I just think that would be brilliant. Let's target that for next week. Folks, something else to target, by the way, in 2024, especially if you're a dude, is the idea that you may be at that place in life where your body is starting to think about something other than keeping you active and super engaged in even intimacy with your significant other. And that's because of something that happens to so many men naturally, not their fault, low testosterone. Now, nobody's going to go wear a shirt that said, I had low T and I called Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic. Nobody's going to do that. But I will tell you, if they did, you would see those T-shirts everywhere, because guys just like you, just like me, who've experienced this same natural phenomenon, who want better sleep, they want to have that joie de vivre, that spring in their step, the energy and enthusiasm and commitment to work out more or whatever it is you do with your partner, they've called Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic and they've had the benefit of their expertise. 720-440-7900 is their number. 720-440-7900. You can also visit them at Rocky Mountain Men's Clinic, all 4 words together, RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. It's a $99 appointment, well worth every penny. But here's the thing. If you decide to sign up with them, and there's a 10-question true false, less than 2-minute quiz on the website to tell you if you should even consider it. But if you decide to go with them, that $99, it gets forgiven. It gets rolled into the cost of the rest of the treatment. Why wouldn't you want to do that? RockyMountainMen'sClinic.com. Now, listen, we have gone over the state of the state in as much detail as I'd be willing to do that. But we have a ton of texts here, and I want to get to some of these. Some of these go back a bit, but I want to make sure that I get a chance to read some of these. Somebody texted in, is Alec Baldwin a bad actor with a gun? Yes, because anybody that has ever responsibly owned a firearm knows that you don't pick up a gun, whether you think it's loaded or not, put your finger on the trigger and pull it when it's pointed near another human being. That is moron. What's that?
Especially if you don't check the chamber first.
Yeah, especially if you don't check the chamber. But anyone will tell you, doesn't matter. Even if you check the chamber, you just don't swivel the barrel towards another human being unless you're prepared to kill that person. That's just how it works, right? So here we are. Here's another one. George, I turned Governor Polis off. I'm so glad you're discussing this because it just confirms why I didn't watch him. You are spot on, but thanks for adding some humor to it. We need humor because that's about all we have. Dang, that's sad. I teach watercolor. Takes lots of materials and supplies that I take from home to a studio. My husband thinks I should buy a trailer. Will I need a special license to drive my car back and forth? Students also bring supplies back and forth to the studio. Yeah, that's another great question, isn't it? I guess if you want to tow something, you can pay someone to do it. Maybe you can rent a truck. Maybe you can go rent a U-Haul, but you don't actually need something. You don't need a car. Here's one. George, you're doing a great job going over this governor's insane wish list. True. This is a funny one. If George B. went missing for 5 days, this is a reference to my tardiness coming into the 8 o'clock hour. Would anyone notice? No. Everyone watches podcasts these days. I responded with, and yet here you are. My question to the governor, does he take the bus from Boulder to Denver for work? That's fascinating. The Mustang, that's a very interesting question. I wonder. I can tell you this, by the way. You know who took the bus every single day to the federal courthouse when he was the chief judge for the United States District of Colorado? Was Judge Richard P. Mach. He was the judge over the Oklahoma City bombing trial. That guy took the bus from, he was up, maybe it was Left Hand Canyon or something like that near Boulder, every single day. I don't know that it was a commitment to the environment or whatever, but that guy did it. And if the chief judge of the U.S. District Court of Colorado can, certainly Jared P. Polis, is it P? Jared Polis can. But that's such an interesting question. That's, you know what, there was another topic, we may get to this next week, that Billy had found too, and that was There's some clips out there of the mayor of Boston saying, people, please consider inviting these migrant families into your homes and businesses over the winter because we don't have any place to store them. And the immediate question has to be, how many are in your house, Mayor? Or how many are in your deputies' houses? How many are, I mean, did the chief of police invite them in? Any of your appointees? What's that? Yeah, we can finish up with that. Let's play that sound. That sounds good.
If you have an extra room or suite in your home, please consider hosting a family. Safe housing and shelter is our most pressing need. Become a sponsor family. You can contact the Brazilian Worker Center for more information on how you can step up if you're willing to have an additional family be part of your family.
Just the hypocrisy. By the way, and this is the topic we'll talk on Monday, is that coming for Denver? Are we about to hear Mayor Mike Johnston, who has now said, hey, surrounding communities, I know we made a ridiculous policy decision in saying we're a sanctuary city and inviting busloads of 36,000 immigrants into Denver. We need your help. Is he on the verge of doing a press conference like that? Asking you and me to open our doors to these people we didn't invite here to begin with? Interesting. I wonder if he will. I wonder if the mayor will. And you know what? If any elected official would put their money where their mouth is, Mike Johnston would. I swear to you, Mike Johnston would. And so if he doesn't invite a migrant family into his home, then you know what's up. But I'm telling you, that's a guy that would back it. He's not just talk. That dude would do it. I'm telling you, he's a guy of character, whether you agree or disagree with his policies, he would do it. So I'm open to the idea that he'll ask for it, but then he'll back it up. He'll say, we invited a migrant family into our home. That'll be very, very interesting to see if that happens. A couple other texts. George, he sounds like a Republican. That's a reference to Polis and the tax cuts and the Tabor stuff. Per the last caller, I would like to point out that statistics can be easily manipulated. I know this as I once worked for a firm that did exactly that. Well, you know, Mark Twain says there's liars, damn liars, and statisticians. Joan, so on 212, the city council of Lakewood's voting to be a sanctuary city. Of course they are, because they've seen Denver and they said, we'd like that too. Give it to Jared and Hick for setting goals to achieve after they're out of office. Perfect example of crappy leadership. That's our friend Alexa. Another one, hope you can put the podcast up soon. I want to promote it on my Facebook page. It's been a great show as usual. Thank you so much for that. Oh, I know. This is someone talking about the Alec Baldwin thing, as in his acting skills. Oh, they were trying to be funny as a bad actor with a gun. You know what that is? Clever. I'm not that bright, but you know what? Text is tone deaf. It's just that you can rarely get the good stuff short of an emoji out of a text. Hey, my thanks to everybody that joined us today. Sherry Pife, Madison Gilbert from the RNC, Commodore, Paul Lundeen from the State Senate, and Billy, thanks for making it happen. And you guys, the calls, the texts, it was all great. How much time, Billy? 10 seconds. Well, that's not enough to say much more than stick around for Monday. George Brauchler, 710, KNUS.